Chapter 337. The two of them returned to the dilapidated temple at the foot of the mountain. A pot was set up in the middle of the courtyard, and a fragrant meat soup was being cooked. A group of orphans were holding large white steamed buns and eating the meat soup with relish. They had made it themselves. Seeing the two appear, the group of children stood up. Perhaps it was because they saw Xian Ping covered in blood, they looked at Yu Qianqiu with fear. They probably misunderstood Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu looked around the dilapidated temple and shook his head at Xian Ping with a strange expression. This was his nature. It was hard to change. Xian Ping pointed at the group of children and said, "Boss, they are all here." Yu Qianqiu nodded, "Leave them to me. There's no need to search for more people in the future. Quickly return to the general's mansion. When I'm not here, listen to Shi Xiaotian." Understood? Understood. After seeing Yu Qianqiu's methods today, Xian Ping was completely convinced. Yu Qianqiu didn't say anything else. With a wave of his hand, the children in the courtyard disappeared along with the pot of meat soup. Then, he himself also disappeared. Seeing that everyone was gone, Xian Ping immediately took off his clothes and put on a new set of clothes. He didn't stop to rest and flew toward the direction of the capital. This was the good thing about wooden people. They were stubborn. The moment Yu Qianqiu gave them a command, they immediately carried it out. Yu Qianqiu didn't stop to look for Ling Feng and Beizi. After taking in the people they had gathered, he told them what he told Xian Ping and returned to the general's mansion. Seeing him, Shi Xiaotian quickly asked, "How is Xian Ping?" "He's fine. He ran into a group of trash from the Daluo sect, but they've been dealt with." Yu Qianqiu walked to the table and drank a cup of tea. He turned around and said, "I've already ordered Ling Feng and the other two to hurry to the capital. From now on, you'll be in charge of the 3 of them and the 10 members in the mansion. Remember to keep a low profile. The cultivation world isn't peaceful at this time." Shi Xiaotian said with an embarrassed smile, "That's not good, right? How can I command them?" Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and said, "There's no need to say anything more. I've wasted too much time this time, so I don't have time to argue with you. I've already instructed Ling Feng's group of 3 and those 10 team members. Feel free to use them. As for the restriction-breaking pill, arrange a time for them to consume it. Don't say that you can't even do this. There are more important tasks for you in the future." Shi Xiaotian's eyes lit up when he heard that. He had long desired to roam the cultivation world. That way, his cultivation would not have been in vain. However, he was tied down by his family and could not leave at will. He nodded repeatedly and said, "Boss, don't worry, I understand. Let's not talk about this anymore. Your father is probably waiting anxiously for a long time. I still have to go to your father's place." As soon as Yu Qianqiu finished speaking, he disappeared again, leaving Shi Xiaotian looking forward to how he would make his way in the cultivation world in the future. Little did he know that when he truly stepped into the cultivation world, what awaited him would be a baptism of blood and slaughter. In the Western military camp, there were no tents anymore. Instead, there were sturdy and reliable barracks. On the training field, Shi Yintian was wearing his military uniform and personally leading the training of the army. Not far away, on a tall watchtower, Shi Wenguang was wearing a full set of armor as he looked at the elite troops training below. He did not know when this army would be able to display its usefulness. After all, a general without a battle was lonely. Shi Wenguang turned around and looked at the 4 people behind him. These were the cultivators that Yu Qianqiu had sent to protect him. At that time, he did not think too much about it because he wanted to escape from the capital. But who knew that it was easier to invite a god than to send him away? Now that he thought about it, Yu Qianqiu had sent these people. In addition to protecting him, he also had the intention of monitoring and controlling him. If he did not follow Yu Qianqiu's instructions, he believed that if these people wanted to take the heads of him and his father, it would be as easy as taking something out of their pocket. No matter how brave the soldiers in the army were, who could stop them? This Yu Qianqiu was really far-sighted. In the face of the sudden incident at that time, besides solving the problem, he actually made people unknowingly become his pawns. Shi Xiaotian looked in the direction of the capital and sighed in his heart. His wife and son were there. He did not know when he would be able to lead the army to the east and reunite with his family. But all of this depended on Yu Qianshou, who had disappeared from the cultivation world for a long time. He would occasionally come in contact with some rogue cultivators. He had heard of Yu Qianshou's big actions in the cultivation world. However, he hadn't heard any news about him for a long time. He didn't know where he had gone. "Chief!" Shi Wenguang suddenly heard a shout behind him. It took him a long time to react. He turned around and saw that it was Yu Qianshou who he had been thinking about. Yu Qianshou smiled and said, "General, what are you thinking about? Why are you so lost in thought?" Shi Wenguang did not answer. He cupped his fists and said, "So it's Mr." Taking this opportunity, Shi Xiaotian took a look at Yu Qianshou, who was still dressed like a servant of his family. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. This guy was obviously a strong person, but he always appeared in front of him with a cowardly look. As the two of them spoke, they leaned on the wooden railing of the sentry tower. As far as their eyes could see, there were no clouds in the blue sky, and the sun was shining brightly. On the vast land, thousands of soldiers and horses were moving in an orderly manner. It was a magnificent sight. Looking at the extraordinary martial arts practice below, Yu Qianshou sighed, "General is really good at leading troops. I believe that General is already prepared to lead the army to the east." A trace of joy flashed in Shi Wenguang's eyes. He threw off his cloak and waved his hand at the people below. He said in a heroic manner, "My millions of soldiers are ready for battle, and we have sufficient provisions. As long as Mr. is ready, we can lead the army to the east at any time. I guarantee that in less than a year, we will be able to conquer the whole of China." "Good." Yu Qianshou applauded. "The name of the pillar of the state general is known to the world. Wherever the general points his sword, the army will look down on them. Who dares to stand in his way? Naturally, he will be invincible." "But..." Yu Qianshou's tone softened a little. He smiled and said, "The time is not right yet. General needs to be patient for the time being. But don't worry, General. The day will not be too far away." Shi Wenguang thought that he had brought good news. But when he heard that, his heart turned cold again. Yu Qianshou smiled and took out the letter Shi Xiaotian gave him. He handed it over and said, "This is a letter from General's family. I believe it will make General feel better." Shi Wenguang took the letter and shook his head. He sighed, "I wonder when my family will be reunited." Although he said that, he knew that his family was also in Yu Qianshou's hands. He had no choice but to listen to him. "I almost forgot to tell General a piece of good news. I believe Madam has mentioned it in her letter. But I still want to congratulate General in advance." Yu Qianshou smiled. "General's eldest daughter-in-law is pregnant. General will be a grandfather soon." "Really?" Shi Wenguang was overjoyed. He immediately found the letter from his wife and read it carefully. Yu Qianshou did not disturb him. He waved to a few of his men and they went down the watchtower together. Shi Wenguang read the news that he was going to be a grandfather in the letter. He was overjoyed. But when he saw the date at the end of the letter, he was stunned. Wasn't this letter written today? How did it get here within 6 hours? From the capital city to here, it was such a long distance. He immediately thought of Yu Qianshou's supernatural power. He couldn't help but gasp. When he came back to his senses, he looked around and saw the 4 bodyguards climbing up again. One of them bowed and said, "General, our leader has some matters to attend to and has to leave first. He asked us to bid farewell on his behalf." Shi Wenguang waved his hand in a daze. He thought, "It's over. My grandson is going to fall into that guy's hands again." Chapter 338. Within the twilight valley of the Fei region, a strange yet majestic blue flame was blazing. Yu Qianshou, who had left the western barracks, had returned here. This was for no other reason than that he had used up most of the blue fire elemental essence in his body. He needed to replenish it so that he could defend himself if something unexpected happened. Looking up at the azure flames, Yu Qianqiu walked up to them. Stretching out his palm, he circulated the starflame fire art, and dense azure fire elemental energy flowed into his hand. As he was happily absorbing, an angry roar suddenly rang out in his mind. "Fire thief, it's you again." Startled, Yu Qianqiu looked down into the eye of fire. This voice seemed to belong to the Fey child underground who was not afraid of fire. In his days, a force cut off his absorption of the fire elemental energy. Needless to say, it was the little Fey down below. Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and coldly snorted, "Little Fey, I'll let you steal it." Without another word, he bent his body and leaped into the azure flames. His limbs spread out as he floated in the flames. The starflame fire art madly circulated, and the fire elemental energy continuously flowed into his body. "What a shameless fire thief, hurry up and stop." The child's voice in his mind immediately began to curse. Unfortunately, it didn't seem to know much about cursing and only repeated the same few words. How could such words pierce through Yu Qianqiu's skin? Yu Qianqiu didn't even blink as he continued to absorb. He concluded that the person down below couldn't come out, or else they wouldn't just be talking. The child's voice seemed to grow weaker and weaker until it was pleading, "Kind fire thief, I beg you, please don't absorb anymore. If you do, it will be very difficult for my little brothers and sisters to wake up." In the end, the voice slowly faded away. Yu Qianqiu didn't care about the life or death of the Fey. He inhaled until he was full and floated back to the shore. As soon as he withdrew the fire art, 2 azure flames flickered in his eyes. His entire body was filled with vigor, and he stretched comfortably before suddenly disappearing from the spot. When Xiao Chen reappeared, he was already at the sea 50 kilometers away from the fiendish ghost domain. He looked around but did not find anything strange. The long sword on Yu Qianqiu's back popped out. He jumped onto the flying sword and flew out from the craggy rocks towards the southern sea purple bamboo forest. He did not know what Bai Changchun wanted him to do and how long it would take. Therefore, he took the risk of delaying some time and went back to deal with his personal affairs first. Otherwise, he would never be able to calm down. The vast South Sea was boundless. Birds flew in the sky, blue waves surged to the heavens, and occasionally, whales and sharks showed their backs. Riding on a flying sword, riding on the sea breeze, the blazing sun like fire, the rolling waves of the blue sea, sleeping during the day and rising at night, the bright moon attracting the stars, Yu Qianqiu flew alone above the vast sea for 2 days and nights. He estimated that he was about to reach the location Bai Changchun had mentioned, but he still didn't see that bullshit southern sea purple bamboo forest. He couldn't help but feel a little confused. "Don't play with me. Old man Bai wasn't that humorous." Standing on the flying sword, he looked around with his hand on his forehead like Monkey Sunday. He didn't even see a small island. How could there be a purple bamboo forest? Suddenly, an indistinct white fog in the distance caught his attention. He quickly flew over on his flying sword. When he was in the sky, the vast sea of fog below made his eyes light up. He had stayed on supporting Immortal's Island before, and there was a similar island protection formation there. Other than defending against enemies, it also had another function. In the words of his previous life, it was to prevent natural disasters such as typhoons and tsunamis. This was probably the legendary southern sea purple bamboo forest. Damn, I finally found it. It's not fun to go for a ride on the sea for a few days. Yu Qianqiu patted his chest in relief. When he got close to the sea of fog on his flying sword, he circulated his primordial qi and shouted, "May I ask if this is the southern sea purple bamboo forest?" His voice rolled into the sea of fog. After a while, there was no response. Yu Qianqiu wanted to barge into the island protection formation to take a look, but he was worried that it was a killing formation. He couldn't help but wonder if the owner wasn't home or if his voice was too soft. Thus, he shouted again, "May I ask if this is the southern sea purple bamboo forest? Is the owner home? Who? Who? Is there an end to that broken voice? Why are you shouting in the middle of the day?" Can't you let me sleep? Leave now, this is not the southern sea purple bamboo forest. A lazy and impatient voice came from the sea of fog. It didn't sound loud, but it made Yu Qianzhou's ears ring. Yu Qianzhou was shocked. What a high cultivation level. Then, he was stunned again. After all this time, this wasn't the southern sea purple bamboo forest? Then where would it be? Senior, since you live here, you must know the location of the southern sea purple bamboo forest. Senior, please give me some pointers. I will be very grateful, Yu Qianzhou politely said. I don't know. Leave, don't disturb my afternoon nap. Just as the lazy voice finished and Yu Qianzhou was feeling gloomy, a girl's voice came from the sea of fog again. Mister, why are you looking for the southern sea purple bamboo forest? If the reason is reasonable, I can give you a pointer or two. As long as someone knew, Yu Qianzhou's eyes lit up. He cupped his fists and said, I don't have any reason to look for the southern sea purple bamboo forest. I am here under the orders of my master. The woman replied with an, oh, and said, who is your master? How do you know about the southern sea purple bamboo forest? Hearing this, normal people didn't know about this place. Yu Qianzhou replied, my master's surname is Bai. He lives in the demon region's Shantian Island. The girl's clear and melodious voice exclaimed, you're Senior Bai's disciple? What? Elder Bai took in a disciple? The lazy voice immediately became spirited and said, Ze, let him in. I want to see what kind of person can make Elder Bai take a liking to him. As soon as the voice finished, the sea of fog churned and a passage was quickly opened up in front of Yu Qianzhou. The girl said, I didn't know you are Elder Bai's disciple. Please don't take it to heart. Please come in. It seemed like these two were very familiar with Bai Changchun. Were they enemies or friends? After hesitating for a while, Yu Qianzhou still flew in carefully along the passage. After all, if he wanted to know where the southern sea purple bamboo forest was, he had to ask these two people. After passing through the passage, the surrounding sea of fog disappeared. It was really similar to the island's protective formation. From the outside, it looked hazy, but from the inside, there was nothing blocking it. Yu Qianzhou put away his flying sword and landed on the ground. A girl in purple was already waiting at the side. Yu Qianzhou only took a glance and was immediately attracted. Her beautiful hair was unrestrained, and her face was beautiful, quiet, and dignified. She had a pair of big eyes that were filled with intelligence, and her skin was fair. Coupled with her purple dress, she seemed to have an extraordinary temperament. A simple purple ribbon was tied around her waist, outlining her graceful figure. It was the first time they met, so it wasn't good to be too lecherous. He had to leave a good impression on the beauty. Yu Qianzhou forced himself to look elsewhere. It was fine if he didn't look, but the moment he looked, his face darkened. There were bamboos all around him, and they were purple bamboos that he had never seen before. He was currently in a purple bamboo sea. If someone said that this wasn't the southern sea purple bamboo forest, he wouldn't believe it even if he was beaten to death. He was obviously fooled. Chapter 339. A gust of wind blew, the bamboo sea swayed and rustled. A few purple bamboo leaves swirled and flew between the two of them. The lady in purple saw that Yu Qianzhou didn't look good and seemed to see through his displeasure. She couldn't see through his cultivation, so she bowed and said, This is the southern sea purple bamboo forest. My master is used to being free and unfettered. He doesn't have any taboos when he speaks. If he offended you in any way, I apologize on behalf of my master. I hope you won't take it to heart. With the lady apologizing, Yu Qianzhou's anger was reduced by half. Moreover, this was the purple bamboo forest. That middle-stage demigod must be here. Even if he was angry, he had nowhere to vent. He remembered that Bai Changchun said that Master Nongzhu had a female disciple. This must be the lady in front of him. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Since this is the southern sea purple bamboo forest, you must be Master Nongzhu's disciple. The one who spoke before was Master Nongzhu. Yes, Elder Bai must have mentioned it. The lady in purple smiled. My name is Z.E. May I know your name? Z.E. Yu Qianqiu sized her up and said with cupped hands, Mrs. dressed in purple, you are indeed as beautiful as your name suggests. I am Yu Qianqiu. You are Yu Qianqiu? Z.E. suddenly asked. Yu Qianqiu was startled and said, Lady Z.E., have you heard of me? Z.E. shook her head slightly and said, I think I've heard my master mention this name before, but that person's reputation in the cultivation world isn't that great. He must have the same name as Mr. Why would Elder Bai accept such a notorious person as a disciple? She then raised her hand to lead the way and said, My master is at the Zhu Lang Paradise, please follow me, Mr. She then walked gracefully and led the way. Yu Qianqiu followed behind with a face full of suspicion. He thought to himself, is there anyone else called Yu Qianqiu in the cultivation world other than me? F***ck. How could such an eccentric name have the same name and a bad reputation? No, if I have the chance, I must get rid of this person, lest he ruin my reputation, especially in front of a beauty. Within the bamboo forest, there was a 1-meter wide path that seemed to be paved with cobblestones. The winding path led deep into the bamboo forest. Walking on the small path, the bamboo forest on both sides was so dense that it was almost impossible to see the sun. Occasionally, the sunlight would shine on the thick layer of bamboo leaves, giving off a special feeling. As Z.E. walked past, the scattered purple bamboo leaves on the path automatically drifted into the bamboo forest on both sides. Seeing such a strange scene for the first time, Yu Qianqiu could not help but look around. The purple bamboo was indeed beautiful. Some were slender, some were noble, and some were like the belly of a Buddha. They were probably rare species, and he had to find a chance to transplant some of them to Utopia. Just as he was thinking this, he passed through the bamboo forest. Suddenly, a courtyard appeared in the depths of the bamboo forest. It was purple in color, and was made from purple bamboo. Several houses were connected to each other, and there were even a few bamboo pavilions in between. The layout was very elegant. There was a purple bamboo fence outside, and on the porch archway that was connected to the small path, there was a plaque that was so purple that it was almost black. On it was written, Bamboo Paradise. This plaque was most likely made from an old piece of purple bamboo that had been cut in half. In the bamboo courtyard, there was a faint purple aura lingering around. It looked like a paradise on earth. Some unknown birds were leisurely jumping around inside, and they were not afraid even if people came. Yu Qianqiu suddenly noticed a middle-aged man leaning lazily at the entrance of the main house, looking at him curiously with a burning gaze. Yu Qianqiu also looked at him. His first impression could only be described with one word, and that was handsome. Although he looked middle-aged, he was definitely a handsome man. He was tall, neither fat nor thin, just right. He was dressed like a scholar, and there was a purplish-black bamboo flute hanging on his waist. His hair was tied up on top of his head, and his hair was black and shiny. His starry eyes were bright, and his sword-like eyebrows made him look even more heroic. The bridge of his nose was tall and straight, and his cheeks were thin. His slightly thin lips formed a slight smile, and there were 2 dimples on both sides of his cheeks. His face showed a sense of vicissitudes, and it was a pity that it was destroyed by the laziness that he emitted. However, there was no doubt about the special charm of this kind of man. In addition to his outstanding appearance, he was definitely a handsome man. He was a super handsome man, and not a beautiful man. He was the kind of man that even men had to admit was handsome. Yu Qianqiu felt a wave of sadness in his heart. There was actually such a handsome man in this world. How could other men live? This kind of man was a scourge if he went out. He was the kind that specialized in scourging women and young girls. Women would probably fall in love with him once they saw him. A scourge. A big scourge. However, his cultivation was so high that it was frightening. It really made one speechless. Z.E. raised her hand and pointed, "This is my master." Yu Qianqiu took 2 steps forward and bowed respectfully. Junior Yu Qianqiu greets Mr. Nongzhu. Don't be so polite. Nomju waved her hand casually, and her face released a charming lazy smile. However, the smile froze immediately. She was stunned and asked, "What did you say your name was?" Yu Qianqiu scratched his head and bowed again. "My name is Yu Qianqiu." "Your name is Yu Qianqiu?" Nomju's eyes lit up. She left the door frame and walked a few steps down. She circled around Yu Qianqiu and asked, "There is also a man named Yu Qianqiu in the cultivation world." Yu Qianqiu betrayed his master twice and made a lot of noise in the cultivation world. It is said that he also practiced a set of fire spells. It can be said that he is quite famous, and the cultivation world calls him the scum of the cultivation world. I have secretly looked for him several times, but he is so elusive that even I have not seen him. Do you know him? The more Yu Qianqiu listened, the darker his face became. It turned out that the Yu Qianqiu with a bad reputation that Ze mentioned was him, and the person that he wanted to find a chance to get rid of was also him. Damn it. Could it be that my reputation is really so bad that it spread all the way here? Yu Qianqiu's face twitched a little and replied, "I am afraid that the Yu Qianqiu that you mentioned is me." "You are Yu Qianqiu?" Ze shouted in surprise. When she looked at Yu Qianqiu again, the expression on her face seemed to be a little disdainful. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. It seemed that he had repeated his name several times. Why did it sound a little strange? Doesn't look like it. Nomju shook her head and looked at him carefully. She said, "You don't look like the legendary scum of the cultivation world. What's more, Old Bai is used to being serious. It is impossible for him to accept that Yu Qianqiu as his disciple. What evidence do you have to prove that you are Yu Qianqiu?" Yu Qianqiu's neck thickened. Then he became discouraged and said dejectedly, "I don't know how to prove it. Is it that important whether I am Yu Qianqiu or not?" "Of course it is important. Yu Qianqiu, whom I have been looking for everywhere, has come to me voluntarily. Of course, I have to verify your authenticity." Nomju pinched her chin and said, "I have a few questions to test you. If you pass, you can prove that you are Yu Qianqiu." Yu Qianqiu felt dizzy. How could he meet such a person? He looked like a decent person. Was there something wrong with his brain? He wanted to find a place to bang his head against the wall. Nomju said seriously, "Let me ask you, which teacher is Old Man Bai?" "The third," Yu Qianqiu replied weakly. Ze frowned, and her gaze towards Yu Qianqiu was filled with disgust. "Yes, that's the right answer." Nomju nodded and asked, "Which sect did you join first?" Kwang Sung." "Well, that's right." "Which sect did you join second?" "Fuxian Island." "Well, not bad. After you joined the second sect, did you do anything wrong to the first sect?" "No." "Well, that's not right. Didn't you kill the grandson of the first sect leader?" "I did." "You didn't kill the grandson of the first sect leader?" "I did." "That's right. The first sect leader was also killed by you, right?" "It said that there were a bunch of other sect members." "I did." TSK. He abandoned his own sect to join another sect, and then turned around and killed his former fellow sect members. He even killed the previous sect leader. Don't tell me that doing this is not letting down his original sect. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. It was Kwang Sung who did wrong to him first. He never felt that there was anything wrong with what he did. But when this guy asked him, even he felt that he had done something disgraceful, let alone in the eyes of others. Forget it. I don't have anything in common with this psychopath, and there's no need to explain. He shook his head and said, "No." Ze frowned again. She didn't even look at Yu Qianqiu. Nomju's eyes lit up. He nodded and said, "Now I believe that you are the scum of the cultivation world. The truth is right in front of you, but you still dare to lie. You are indeed the scum of the cultivation world." "Wait a minute." He suddenly asked in confusion, "Didn't you tell Old Bai about what you did? Otherwise, how could he accept you as a disciple?" Yu Qianqiu wanted to catch this guy and beat him up. But if he did, he would definitely be beaten up. So he gritted his teeth and said, I have told my master about all these things. I didn't hide it from him. That's strange. Did old Bai change his mind? Nongju asked curiously. He thought for a while and shook his head. He probably didn't understand. Then he said, I heard that you have practiced a powerful fire spell. Can you show it to me? It's the best way to prove that you are Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu couldn't stand it anymore. Even if his cultivation was high, he didn't have to torture him like this. He took a deep breath and said word by word in a deep voice, Mr. Nongju, what do you want? Did I offend you in some way? Humph. Zi snorted, this is not Shantian Island. No one will be polite to you. Show it to me. Don't make yourself unhappy. It's okay. It's okay. Zi, don't talk nonsense. Nongju tried to smooth things over. Yu Qianqiu, I don't mean anything. I just heard that you used the fire spell when you were in the core bearing stage and scared away a cultivator in the crossing calamity stage. I'm really curious. I want to see what's so special about your fire spell. I really don't mean anything else. Why don't you show it to me? He had to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. Yu Qianqiu's face turned livid. He said indifferently, yes, sir. As soon as he finished speaking, he emitted a wang sound, and his entire body emitted a green flame, dyeing the surroundings into a green color. Chapter 340. The sudden appearance of the green light immediately frightened the birds in the courtyard and caused them to scatter in all directions. Yu Qianqiu silently stood in the middle of the fire with his sword behind his back, allowing the green flames around him to wantonly spew out. He himself was like the source of the burning fire, like a dream or an illusion. This scene seemed a bit unreal. Nongju and Zi were shocked at first, but then they realized something was wrong. The fire on Yu Qianqiu looked strange and fierce, but they could not feel any warmth. After a moment of silence, Zi said coldly, what overbearing fire spell? It looks weak. I think it's just an illusion. Yu Qianqiu turned his head slowly, and his emotionless eyes met Ziyi's. Ziyi's heart skipped a beat. His eyes were so cold. She didn't know that Yu Qianqiu felt that he had been humiliated time and time again, and that he had already reached the critical point of exploding. He really wanted to let her know whether his stellar flame fire technique was just an empty shell. He was so angry that he needed to let it out. Hey, I heard that the fire you use with your fire art is red. Why is it green? Nongju frowned and said, Yu Qianqiu, did you not use your most powerful fire spell? Don't hide it. Show me what you're good at, I want to see that. The green fire was stirred. Yu Qianqiu said slowly, it's not that I want to hide it, but I'm afraid that if I use it, your purple bamboo forest will be destroyed. Oh. Nongju looked around the purple bamboo forest, and then looked at Yu Qianqiu seriously. She suddenly said strangely, hee hee. Strange, I can't see through your cultivation. You can't be more powerful than me, can you? He just noticed it now. Zi snorted, his cultivation can't be higher than Master's. Master, I was right. He's good at using illusion. Zi, don't talk nonsense. The world is big, and there are many extraordinary people. Old Man Bai is proud and arrogant, and his cultivation base is even higher. There must be a reason why he chose him. After reprimanding her disciple, Nongju smiled at Yu Qianqiu and said, as long as I'm here, I can protect this purple bamboo forest. Yu Qianqiu, don't worry about using your fire spell. I really want to see it. As a cultivator at the middle stage of Huashan, her words were full of confidence. Yu Qianqiu nodded his head slightly, indicating that he would obey the order. He thought to himself, I must burn this entire purple bamboo forest today, or else I will never be able to vent my anger. Seeing that Yu Qianqiu agreed, Nongju's eyes brightened. She retreated with Zi and watched Yu Qianqiu's actions. Yu Qianqiu didn't do much. He simply clenched his fists, his knuckles cracking, and he exhaled. However, the azure flames on the surface of his body began to fluctuate restlessly. A wave of scorching heat suddenly spread out. Yu Qianqiu did not say anything and rapidly pushed the temperature to the highest. Today, he vowed to let this master and disciple know how powerful he was. Starting from his feet, the ground was scorched black, and it continued to expand. The sudden appearance and rapid change of the temperature caused Nongzhu's pupils to constrict. As if remembering something, she exclaimed, "Twilight Valley's blue flame, it's blue flame. No, it's even more tyrannical than the blue flame." It seemed that he also knew about the demon ghost realm's blue flame. The moment such tyrannical heat appeared, the first to bear the brunt of it were naturally Nongzhu and Zi. Zi quickly circulated her energy to resist, and a ring of light rapidly formed around her. This was her stellar energy barrier. Normally, for a stellar energy barrier to appear in the form of a ring of light signified that the person's cultivation had reached the final stages of the tribulation. However, the blue flame's heat was far too tyrannical, and Yu Qianqiu was deliberately giving them a hard time. One could easily imagine just how terrifying the temperature was. Ziyi's serene face revealed an expression of fear. Her stellar energy barrier wavered as if it was about to be destroyed by the invisible heat, but she continued to use all her cultivation and clench her teeth to resist. Nongzhu immediately realized that something was wrong with her disciple and harshly yelled, "Zi, quickly retreat. This flame is not something you can endure with your cultivation." Zi glanced at Yu Qianqiu with a complicated expression. Biting her lips, she obeyed her master's orders and teleported far away into the purple bamboo forest. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. "Brat, it seems that you really do want to burn down my purple bamboo forest. Fine, let me have a taste of your starflame fire art," Nongzhu said in high spirits, and her face was full of excitement. It seemed that she was the kind of person who had been lonely for a long time and was looking for a fight. However, it seemed a little too much for a middle stage of Huashan realm cultivator to fight an early stage of Yuanying realm cultivator. The purple-black flute on Nongzhu's waist appeared in her hand. She held it horizontally to her lips, and her slender fingers quickly flicked and pressed down, creating a series of finger shadows. Di, li, li. The clear sound of the flute was like the sound of nature. Just listening to the sound, it seemed to be refreshing. The blue flame on Yu Qianqiu's body fluctuated along with the sound of the flute, but with a cold hum, the fire of the blue flame suddenly increased. The spreading blackness on the ground bypassed Nongzhu and quickly attacked the surrounding buildings. Just now, he used the high temperature to force Zi to retreat, but the high temperature that he controlled could not get close to Nongzhu. Therefore, he controlled the strong heat to attack the surroundings and no longer fought against Nongzhu. He wanted to see how Nongzhu could protect the purple bamboo forest. Nongzhu, who was playing the flute, showed a faint smile on her face. The sound of the flute suddenly changed and became melodious. Yu Qianqiu, who was surrounded by the blue flame, slightly squinted his eyes. He saw that the sound of the flute in Nongzhu's hand actually spread out in a kind of almost tangible sound wave. It could be seen with the naked eye, and quickly formed a transparent ball in a certain range, blocking the invasion of the high temperature to the buildings and wrapping the two people in it. Yu Qianqiu tried his best to drive the flute, but the strong heat that used to be invincible in the past could not break the sound barrier. "Don't steam the steamed buns, fight for your dignity." Yu Qianqiu clenched his fists and made a cracking sound. He straightened his chest and waved his arms, saying, "Ah." Boom, the blue flames suddenly burst out. He no longer fought against Nongzhu with the high temperature, but wanted to directly break the sound barrier with the fierce blue flame. In an instant, the transparent ball formed by the sound barrier was suddenly filled with the blue flame. Looking from the outside, it was like a blue ball with a diameter of dozens of meters emitting blue light. Zi, who was in the purple bamboo forest, witnessed all of this and her beautiful face turned pale. The high temperature just now still made her feel a lingering fear. If she was engulfed by this fierce green flame, she really didn't know if she would be able to endure it. In fact, her concern was unnecessary. If she really fought with Yu Qianqiu, with Yu Qianqiu's cultivation, it would be very difficult for him to hurt her, no matter how strong the blue flame was. She couldn't just stand there and let Yu Qianqiu burn her with fire. The strong blue flame could not break the sound barrier. On the contrary, Nongzhu was still playing the flute with a smile on her face. When the flame was 1 meter away from him, it was difficult for it to move an inch. Yu Qianqiu knew that he was already giving it his all. He couldn't help but bitterly smile in his heart. This soul formation cultivator was truly extraordinary. Just a simple flute and he couldn't do anything about it. If the other party were to retaliate, Nongzhu really started to fight back. The sound of the flute suddenly became rapid, and Yu Qianqiu immediately felt a strong pressure coming from all directions. The sound barrier ball wrapped in the blue flame was shrinking slowly. It seemed that Nongzhu was going to send the blue flame back to where it came from. Yu Qianqiu wanted to fight back, but he immediately felt that the blood in his body was swelling, and his ears were buzzing. The blood in his chest seemed to be about to spurt out from his throat. His eyes were red and had a tendency to bulge out. He knew that with his cultivation, he couldn't fight back at all. It was time to stop, or he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. In a second, the released strong blue flame was quickly sucked back into his body. Chapter 341. After the blue flame faded, the transparent sound barrier disappeared. Nongzhu stopped playing the flute and looked at Yu Qianqiu meaningfully. She smiled and said nothing. She held the purple and black flute in her right hand and twirled it between her slender fingers dexterously. Yu Qianqiu even suspected that this was how he got his title of Mr. Nongzhu. Strange. Strange. You were able to hide the blue flame in your body and control it so freely. It's hard to imagine how you managed to cultivate it. Nongzhu's face was full of amazement. He then asked, "Does this blue flame come from Twilight Valley?" Yu Qianqiu silently nodded. Senior's cultivation is truly unfathomable. I overestimated my own abilities and overestimated the power of the blue flame. Nongzhu shook his head and smiled. After this test, I knew that you were only at the nascent soul stage. You don't need to take your defeat to heart. It would be strange if I couldn't even suppress you. To say that my cultivation is unfathomable would be an overestimation. In the entire cultivation world, I can't think of anyone with a more unfathomable cultivation than your master. As for the blue flame, it has already transcended the realm of ordinary flames and can never be overestimated. It's not that the blue flame isn't powerful, but that the difference in cultivation between you and me is too great. Old Bai, ah. Did your master ever tell you about the blue flame? Master didn't, but Healy did tell me that this blue flame is one of the legendary 3 true flames. As for the rest, I don't know, Yu Qianqiu said. Healy? Nongzhu muttered and suddenly smiled. Your master accepted you as a disciple. Is he all right? It seemed that he still didn't know that Healy was dead. Yu Qianqiu bluntly said, I already killed Healy. What? You already killed Healy? Nongzhu cried out. After a moment of silence, he didn't ask Yu Qianqiu why Healy had been killed. He only sighed. It's good that he's dead. It's not easy to cultivate to become a human, and you still have to rely on being a human all day. Isn't that tiring? Let's not talk about him. You know this place because your master told you to come here, right? Yes. Yu Qianqiu nodded. Nongzhu smiled bitterly and said, Your master Shifu must be plotting something against me again. When the time comes, he can just leave, but you want me to stay with you in the realm of demons. It's ridiculous. Did he ask you to come and get to know me so that we can get along in the future? Yu Qianqiu nodded, then shook his head and said, Master did say something like that, but this time, he said that he has something for me to do. As for what it is, Master said that when I find you, you will tell me what I should do. Nongzhu, who was shaking her head, was stunned. She held the flute in her hand tightly. After a long time, she looked at Ze, who was standing in the purple bamboo forest. She smiled bitterly again and said, By Changchun, by Chang Chun. You worry too much, but why do you always drag me down? As your friend, do I have to worry for nothing? I have nothing to say about you worrying about the demon region and pulling me in. After all, I was the one who pulled you in back then. But do you have time to worry about the whole world? This time, you don't even let my disciple go. Hearing this, Yu Qianqiu, who was a bit discouraged, immediately became curious. He couldn't help but ask, Senior, what does my master want me to do? At this moment, Zi also walked back and looked at her master curiously. What? Do you want to do it? Nongzhu said angrily, he wants you to die and gamble with your life. Do you want to do it? Damn. Only people with mental problems would do it. Yu Qianqiu subconsciously shrank his head and said with a smile, Senior, you must be joking. How could my master send me to die? Impossible. Nongzhu sneered and said, then why didn't your master tell you what to do in person, but asked you to ask me? I think he was too embarrassed to tell you. Let me ask you, do you know that your master is going to the East Holy Land? Yes. Healy said that master's lifespan was running out, and he couldn't wait until the next opening day of the Heaven and Earth formation, so master is basically going to go this time. Did your master tell you about the star bead? He did. He said that it was a treasure that even the immortals in the upper world coveted. The owner of it could become a god, and the ancient war started because of it. Nongzhu nodded and said, it is said that there is a solid reason to believe that the star bead didn't fall into anyone's hands, but was left in the territory of the Huaxia Empire. Damn! Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up and he said with a smile, that's not possible. If such a precious treasure was really left in the territory of Huaxia, it would have fallen into the hands of some big sects or masters in the cultivation world. Hee hee. Do you think people in the cultivation world of Huaxia don't want to look for it? However, after searching for tens of thousands of years, no one had been able to find it. Hence, everyone treated it as a legend, and no one bothered to find it again. It should be over by now. But a highly respected fortune teller from the Di Rong Kingdom said before his death that the star bead would reappear in the Huaxia Empire in 100 years. Hey! Now there is something interesting to watch. All the soul-forming stage cultivators from all countries are eyeing the Huaxia Empire. Yu Qianqiu asked suspiciously, Senior, what does a fortune teller do? How did he convince everyone with just one sentence? It's similar to fortune telling in the secular world, but he is more advanced. He doesn't hang out with ordinary people, and his customers are all soul-forming stage cultivators from all countries. That old guy doesn't speak easily, but when he does, he never makes a mistake. How can people not believe him? So a bunch of soul-forming stage cultivators came to Huaxia to join in the fun. But your master is also from Huaxia, and he is the #1 soul-forming stage cultivator. If your master doesn't agree, no one dares to come. Damn! That old guy is really awesome. It's an honor to be his apprentice. Yu Qianqiu blinked and asked, what happened then? Then the news that your master is going to the Eastern Holy Land in a few years got out. A bunch of people were prepared to wait for your master to leave before coming. But your master didn't want it. He took the initiative to send out invitations, inviting all the soul-forming stage cultivators to gather in the Eastern Sea. I was the one who sent the invitations. Your master has a lot of face, so no one dared to not go. Even I went. In the end, your master is awesome. Facing several hundred soul formation stage experts from various countries, he actually wanted to force everyone to swear a poison oath. The general meaning was that under the situation where he went to the Holy East Land and whether he was alive or dead, the soul formation stage experts present were not allowed to personally participate in this matter and were not allowed to personally visit the Chinese cultivation world. To be honest, although your master is a bit arrogant, this oath isn't too extreme. At least he left some leeway for those people, and didn't completely cut off their hope. But with so many people present, your master is going against everyone alone, so naturally there are people who aren't afraid of him. They've started fighting? Yu Qianqiu asked excitedly. Just imagine a person facing all the top experts in the world. Just this courage alone is enough to make people's blood boil. Ze, who was at the side, also had a strange look in her eyes. Hee hee. When it comes to fighting, I've never seen your master afraid of anyone. Back then, before your master took over the demon ghost region, when he was still in the early stage of soul-forming stage, he dared to look for experts all over the world to challenge, and beat some early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators until they were speechless. In the end, I thought of some ways to restrict your master to the demon ghost region, and your master became the world's #1 expert through fighting. Sigh. In the sky above the eastern sea, Old Man Bai immediately killed 3 people because of a disagreement. What a good temper. Ze suddenly asked, Master, what were the cultivation levels of the 3 soul-forming stage cultivators that Old Man Bai killed? Do ordinary early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators have the guts to do that? Nongzhu asked in reply, and continued with a bitter smile, later, some soul-forming stage cultivators thought your master was too arrogant, so 16 soul-forming stage cultivators joined forces to fight your master, including 2 early-stage soul-forming stage cultivators. Wow! In that battle, I finally understood what it meant to be the #1 expert in the world. With a flip of his hand, he could summon clouds and rain. With a flip of his hand, he could control ice, wind, fire, and water. He could move mountains and drain seas. Even the thunderbolts in the sky were casually turned into heavenly swords by him. It was as if there was nothing in this world that he couldn't borrow. He killed all 16 deity transformation cultivators. Even now, when I think of that scene, my heart still palpitates with fear. In the end, the rest of them didn't dare to cause trouble, and were all forced to swear an oath. Tell me, is your master still human? With such a terrifying cultivation level, how could he still stay in the cultivation world and not ascend to immortality? Chapter 342. Ziyi's eyes became confused when she heard these shocking words. She seemed to be imagining the scene of the fierce battle. Yu Qianqiu was shocked and excited, but he didn't think it was strange. Bai Changchun once told him that he had even killed immortals in the upper world, so it was normal for him to have no opponents in the cultivation world. Although those people were forced to make a poison oath, they didn't give up. The poison oath said that they couldn't intervene in person, but it didn't say that they couldn't let others intervene on their behalf. Therefore, the masters of the soul formation stage from various countries sent their disciples or subordinates to Huaxia. However, in the eyes of the Huaxia cultivation world, they were the orthodox cultivation world, and everyone was responsible for defending and protecting their own land. A group of foreign cultivators had no choice but to join forces to gain a foothold in the Huaxia cultivation world. So they found the father and son of the Yan family, who were attacked by the righteous and evil sects. The father and son of the Yan family were in danger, so they were happy to have help from a group of strong cultivators. As Nongzhu spoke, she suddenly said with a teasing smile, Yu Qianqiu, I heard that the father and son of the Yan clan were forced into a corner by you. That's why they became enemies with the righteous and demonic Tao. Ze looked at him curiously and wondered why it had anything to do with him. Yu Qianqiu was thinking about what the enchantress of Allure said a few days ago. It turned out that there was a reason behind those people's arrival. But after hearing Nongzhu's words, his face suddenly became serious and he denied flatly, slander, this is pure slander. In fact, the father and son of the Yan family have been enemies with the righteous and evil sects for a long time. I'm just too upright, and I really can't stand such despicable behavior, so I revealed the truth. Nongzhu smiled and said, I don't know whether you're upright or not. Anyway, I only know that many cultivators call you the scum of the cultivation world. I guess that once you showed up, many defenders wanted to kill you, especially the Daluo sect. I heard that you killed the son of the head of their sect. Alas. The Daluo sect was probably going crazy at that time. It could be said that they were humiliated by you, so they sent a large number of people and almost turned the Huaxia cultivation world upside down. But even I didn't expect that you would hide in the demon ghost region and become Old Bai's disciple. Who would have thought that? No wonder I couldn't find you anywhere. Although Ze rarely interfered with the matters of the outside world of cultivation, she still knew about some of the higher-ranked sections. This fellow in front of her actually dared to kill the son of the Deluo sect master, which was ranked second in the righteous Tao. Yu Qianzhou's expression is a little unnatural, but he still quibbles. These are all rumors, it's not worth believing. Haha. Nongzhu shook her head and laughed. Look at this. The cultivators from the other countries were forced to go because of your master, and the Yen father and son were forced into a corner by you. Now that these two groups of people are together, and old man Bai has become your master and disciple, this mess. I just realized that you two master and disciple are really a perfect match, both of you are extremely daring people. Sigh. Where there is a cause, there is an effect. But what does that have to do with me? You two master and disciple should solve the problem yourselves. What right does old man Bai have to drag me into this? This is outrageous. Master, what does old man Bai want you to do? Ze asked. Nongzhu frowned and said, the cultivation world of Huaxia is undoubtedly the most powerful country in the entire cultivation world. Although the other countries are not as powerful as Huaxia individually, if they unite, they will definitely be more powerful than Huaxia. Usually, these hundreds of countries can't unite, but the temptation of the star bead is too great, and Huaxia is too xenophobic, so they have no choice but to unite. This time, those who came to meet with the Yen father and son are only the vanguard. Once the war starts, strong reinforcements from other countries will come continuously. Although old man Bai was in the demon region, deep down he saw himself as a part of Huaxia. However, when he forced everyone to swear an oath in the East Sea, he had also said that he would not interfere in this matter personally, or the oath would be voided. Now, what was originally a matter between soul-forming stage cultivators has become a matter of the whole cultivation world. Sigh. Because of old man Bai, the whole cultivation world is going to be in chaos, and the cultivation world of Huaxia has become the target of public criticism. It's in a precarious situation. The three of them had their own thoughts. After a long time, Ze suddenly asked, Master, did you take the oath at that time? Hearing this, Nongzhu's face showed a trace of pride, and she said, based on my relationship with old man Bai, he won't make things difficult for me. Ze, don't get the wrong idea. It's not because I didn't take the oath, but because he wants me to solve this problem. Even if he wants me to do that, I won't do it. Once I do that, I will become the enemy of all the soul-forming stage cultivators in the world. At that time, old man Bai can just leave, and I don't have the ability to fight against all the masters in the world alone. I can live for at least 700 or 800 years, and I don't want to die so early. After a pause, she shook her head and said with a bitter smile, but I was still tricked by this old man. Some time ago, he came to me and said that this problem was caused by him, and he had to find a way to solve it. Otherwise, once the cultivation world of Huaxia collapses, the armies of the secular world from other countries will come one after another. At that time, the Huaxia Empire will be in chaos, and the common people will be in deep trouble. I don't know how many people will die because of this, so he has to find a way to protect the cultivation world of Huaxia. I know he's a proud and aloof person. Although he's invincible, he doesn't have many friends, and I'm his only friend. He's looking for me because he needs my help, but as I said before, it's impossible for me to personally intervene in this matter. So I asked him, what are you going to do now that things have come to this? Yu Qianzhou, do you know what your master said? Damn it. What do you mean by that? Don't tell me you want me to go against the whole world. Isn't that courting death? I won't do it even if you beat me to death. Yu Qianzhou shook his head decisively and said, this is a matter between masters like you. I am just at the gathering vitality stage, and I can't guess what you are talking about. His words first removed himself from the problem, but he might not get what he wanted. Nongzhu was stunned. She looked at him with a strange expression and continued, your master said that he has been meditating on the Great Tao for many years, and he seemed to understand something by watching the stars at night. He found the person who can solve this problem. He hopes that I will send my disciple, Ze, to help that person, for the sake of our friendship. Master, did Senior Bai specifically ask me to participate in this matter? Ze asked in surprise. It seemed that it was a great honor to be called by Bai Changchun. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and thought, idiot. Nongzhu rolled her eyes at Zi and snorted, I refused at that time. Isn't that asking my disciple to die? Who would have thought that the old man would bully me for being soft-hearted? He said that if I didn't help him, he wouldn't care if he would be punished by the heavens. He would slaughter all the deity transformation cultivators in the world, including me. I was shocked at that time. I knew that since he dared to say that, he would definitely do it. I had no choice but to ask him, can the person you mentioned really solve this problem? He said yes, so I gritted my teeth and said yes. After the matter was settled, he told me that he would ask that person to come to me in person, and asked me to tell him about it. He also asked Zi to go with him to carry out the task. Speaking of this, Nongzhu suddenly pointed at Yu Qianqiu's nose and flew into a rage. Damn it, I thought it was some great figure that could attract old Bai's attention. I wanted to meet him, but it turned out to be you, Yu Qianqiu. You are the scum of the cultivation world. As a cultivator in the nascent soul stage, how could you, a cultivator in the nascent soul stage, protect the cultivation world of Huaxia? How could you run away? Not only the father and son of the Yen family will not let you go, but many cultivators in the cultivation world of Huaxia will also want to kill you. How could you protect them? It's good enough that you can protect yourself. Asking you to take my disciple out, isn't that a gamble with your life? I finally understand now. Old Bai was afraid that you would die too quickly, so he took my disciple out to be your bodyguard, old bastard. It was probably because he was angry that a handsome old man like him was spouting vulgarities. Chapter 343. Go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to do that glorious and great thing. If I have to sacrifice, I have to make it worthwhile, right? Do you want me to shed my blood for the world? I have nothing better to do. What does the world have to do with me? Who would do something without benefits? Yu Qianqiu murmured to himself. He lowered his head and let him scold him. However, there was one thing that he also understood. It seemed that this guy knew who he was the moment he heard his name. He was beating around the bush to tease him. In Ziyi's strange eyes, Nongzhu seemed to find that she had lost the demeanor of a master. She said to Yu Qianqiu embarrassedly, tell me what you think. I can see that you don't want to go either. As long as you refuse, I don't think old Bai has anything to say. Then, this matter will naturally be settled. Forget it. You don't dare to stand up for me. Do you think I'm an idiot? Old Bai is like a butcher when he gets angry. I'm just a promising young man. I can't even stand a chance against him. Yu Qianqiu coughed and sternly said, since it's an order from my master, how can I not obey as his disciple? I can't do such a thing. Yu Qianqiu is willing to sacrifice my life to relieve master's worries, even if I die 10,000 times. His expression showed that he was resolute to die. His righteous words made Ziyi's disdainful look disappear. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. It was hard to understand. Nongzhu winked and twitched her face. She said, hee hee. You. Hee hee. What a filial disciple. I think the dead headmaster Ang Kwangsung will be so angry that he will come back to life after hearing your words. Yu Qianqiu turned a deaf ear to these mocking words and acted as if he hadn't heard them at all. Instead, he said, Senior, I believe that my master has other arrangements. He wouldn't let me and Lady Zi go into danger alone. In fact, he felt that the name Nongzhu was not a good one. Usually, when he called a senior, he would add the honorific surname in front of the word. For example, Senior Zhang, Senior Lu, and so on. As for Nongzhu, if you give him an honorific surname, he will become Senior Nongzhu. Senior Nong? Yu Qianqiu couldn't bring himself to call him that, so he just called him Senior. Old man Bai has other arrangements? Nongzhu's eyes lit up and she asked suspiciously, how do you know? Did he tell you something? I didn't say anything, but think about it, Senior. Yu Qianqiu explained, although it's not convenient for my master to do it, I can ask someone else to do it. As the torture master of the realm of demons and ghosts, he has thousands of demons and ghosts under his command. Just the ones at the final stage of crossing the heavenly tribulation are frightening. If my master can let me bring them out, I'm confident that I can defeat them no matter how many cultivators from different countries come. Nongzhu looked him up and down and said disdainfully, "What kind of sweet dream are you having? Was there something wrong with his brain? You're Bai Changchun's disciple. How can you release the demons and ghosts in the realm of demons and ghosts at will? If your master had a choice, he would rather destroy the cultivation world of Huaxia than release a single demon or ghost. Does it matter? At worst, we can drive them back to the realm of demons and ghosts." Yu Qianqiu said disapprovingly. Nongzhu looked into the distance with confusion in her eyes, as if she recalled something from the past. After a pause, she shook her head and sighed, "You don't have to mention it again. Your master won't do it. It involves the oath made by the ancient god of war, demon monarch of swords, when he took over the realm of demons and ghosts." Zi asked curiously, "Master, do you know about it?" Nongzhu looked at her disciple and sighed. She said with a wry smile, "If it weren't for my laziness and unwillingness to bear the heavy responsibility, the realm of demons and ghosts of this generation would not be me, instead of old Bai. Speaking of it, I tricked old Bai and trapped him in the realm of demons and ghosts for more than 1,000 years. Otherwise, with his talent, he would have ascended to the immortal realm long ago, and the current situation would not have happened. Speaking of it, it has something to do with me. I'm the one who wronged him first." As he spoke, he looked at Yu Qianqiu and sighed, "Forget it, forget it. Since you are determined to follow master's orders, then I have nothing else to say. Just take it as I owed old man Bai back then. Today, I will return it to him." Yu Qianqiu had heard about this from Bai Changchun. He knew that Nongzhu should have been the realm of demons and ghosts of this generation, but he didn't know what had happened during this period. Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but blame himself for talking too much when he saw that Nongzhu had agreed to the matter that she had opposed so firmly because of his words. Previously, Nongzhu had wanted him to stand up and refuse. Yu Qianqiu had said that he was righteous, but he had the same idea. He was eager for Nongzhu to stand up and refuse. But he had thought it through. It didn't matter. I'll do what I should do when I go out. I can't be so stupid as to hit a stone with an egg. Getting rich quietly was the way of the king. Yu Qianqiu, come with me. I have something to say to you. Nongzhu said hello to him and walked to the purple bamboo forest outside the courtyard. Yu Qianqiu was startled. What kind of words couldn't be said here? He looked at Zi, who had turned her face to the side. He immediately understood that Nongzhu wanted to have a private conversation with him and didn't want her disciple to hear it. He was a little curious, so he quickly followed her out. The two stopped on the path of the purple bamboo forest one after the other. A halo expanded from Nongzhu's body and quickly wrapped Yu Qianqiu in it. Nongzhu turned around and asked, "What are you going to do this time?" "Damn! What's so mysterious that they even need to set up a bounded domain to prevent others from eavesdropping?" Yu Qianqiu looked at the halo that surrounded them and said in surprise, "Senior, do you have any good ideas?" He had never thought of working hard, so he naturally couldn't tell her any plans. So he simply pushed the question back. As expected, Nongzhu stared at him and said, "Should I ask you or you ask me? Since you're ready to follow the master's order, don't you have any plans? I don't think you're a person who is in a hurry to die." Yu Qianqiu put on a serious look again and replied, "I really don't have any plans. After leaving the South Sea, I'll immediately go back to Shuntian Island to ask my master. I'll do whatever my master says without any second thoughts." He added in his heart, "If you want to get the truth out of me, just wait. God knows if you'll sell me out later. You and Old Bai have been friends for more than 1,000 years. But I've only known you for a few days. Less than a day. Yu Qianqiu, don't play this game with me. In terms of cultivation, I'm not as good as your master, but in terms of judgment. Haha. I'm not in the mood to cultivate. I've wandered in the secular world for 1,000 years, and I've seen all kinds of people. I can tell at a glance that you're not a good person. I'm afraid you're thinking in your heart that you'll do whatever you want to do when you go out. You're still trying to hide it from me. Nongju really saw through his thoughts at a glance. But so what if she saw through it? Yu Qianqiu was also a rogue in his previous life, so he was thick-skinned. What's more, even if others could guess what he was thinking, there was no evidence. Yu Qianqiu waved his hands and said, "No, no. You've wronged me. I'll never have that kind of thought even if you beat me to death. I've never had that kind of thought. Really, I've never had that kind of thought from the beginning to the end." He was very sincere. "Oh. You really haven't?" Nongju looked at him seriously and sneered, "Then swear to me now. If you've ever had such a thought, curse yourself to die a horrible death as soon as you leave the South Sea purple bamboo forest. Swear now. Swear to your grandma." Yu Qianqiu cursed in his heart. How could he swear to her? Cultivators' swears would come true. Although he had never seen anyone do it, everyone said so. Who would dare to joke with their lives? Yu Qianqiu smiled awkwardly. "You're being suspicious. I'm open-minded, so I don't need to swear. Open-minded my ass." Nongju immediately gave Yu Qianqiu a burst chestnut with her flute. Her cultivation was high and her attack was fast. Yu Qianqiu didn't even have a chance to dodge. His forehead hurt. He couldn't close his mouth even though he was gritting his teeth. Nongju poked his forehead with her flute and warned, "It's not wrong for you to think like that. You should do that when you go out. You can't do things that you know will lead to death. If you want to save the world, you have to protect your own life first. Otherwise, how can you save the world? Do you understand what I mean?" "Oh." Yu Qianqiu covered his forehead and suddenly understood, but he still didn't want to leave any evidence in his words. He nodded repeatedly and said, "I won't forget your words. I will try my best to understand them." Nongju looked at him and kept shaking her head. She clicked her tongue and said, "It seems that I didn't misjudge you. You're really not a good guy. That's good. I'll be relieved to hand Ze over to you." Then she changed the topic and smiled sinisterly. "Ze can protect you when she goes out with you, but you can't let her be in danger. That girl is stubborn and easily stubborn. I warn you, even if you have to die in front of her. Otherwise, I will find you and turn you into ashes even if you have to go to heaven or hell. There's one thing I won't hide from you. Ze is my disciple, but she is actually my daughter. Your master also knows this. You'd better be smart when you encounter something outside." "Ah." Yu Qianqiu was stunned and said in surprise, Who will protect who? That's for you to think about. Don't ask me." Nongju didn't care so much. She took the halo back into her body and gave him a fierce look. Then she walked straight back to Ze and told her something. Chapter 344. I told you to listen to him and protect his safety, but you still have to put your own safety first. If it's too dangerous, with the transfiguration transposition art that I taught you, it shouldn't be a problem for you to escape alone. Bastard. Bastard. As soon as Yu Qianqiu walked over, he heard Nongju teaching her disciple like this. It was obvious that she was telling her disciple to leave him behind and escape alone when she was in danger. Unfortunately, he had to lower his head under the eaves. Most importantly, he couldn't defeat her, and even her surname was Nongju. Yu Qianqiu stood aside obediently. Ze looked at Yu Qianqiu, who was standing obediently at the side, and said with a slight frown, "Master, if I escape alone, this Senior Bai asked me to protect him. If anything happens to him, how would I have the face to meet Senior Bai? Are you stupid?" Nongju's voice suddenly became louder. Then, thinking that this girl was stubborn, she calmly pointed at Yu Qianqiu and smiled, "Ze, don't look down on this guy. You don't know. I often travel outside, but I know that this guy killed An Kuangsung's grandfather and grandson. Even An Kuangsung at the last stage of passing calamity couldn't catch him. He killed the son of Daluo sect's leader, and the whole Daluo sect was looking for him. Look, he is still standing here, safe and sound. You should know that he was only in the bearing essence stage at that time. In terms of escaping, he is better than you. I'll endure it. Yu Qianzhou's eyebrows trembled. Nongzhu could not help but take a deep breath when she saw the hesitation on her disciple's face. She said calmly and patiently, Zi, what do you think of old Bai's cultivation? Ziyi's face turned serious. Elder Bai's power is profound. He is almost like an immortal on earth. No one in the cultivation world can defeat him. That's right. Why don't you think about it? How can a disciple taught by old man Bai be weak? If he really doesn't have any ability, why would old man Bai entrust such an important task to him? What's more, you've seen his fire spell. Although your cultivation is at the end of the crossing heavens test, do you think you can catch him? Nongzhu sighed, to be honest, I'm not worried about him, but you. If something happens to you, Master will be the only one left in the southern sea purple bamboo forest. How do you expect Master to live for the next few hundred years? Despicable and shameless. You're even playing the pity card. I'll continue to endure it. Yu Qianzhou pretended not to hear anything and continued to maintain a straight face. As expected, Zi nodded emotionally and said, Master, don't worry. I will definitely come back to serve you without a single scratch. Good, good, good. I'm relieved. Let him be then. Nongzhu waved her hand sadly and said goodbye. When she turned around, there were tears in her eyes. Nobody knew whether it was real or not. However, Yu Qianzhou gave him a disdainful look. He judged others by himself and felt that this guy must be pretending. Zi knelt down and said, Master, take care. I will come back as soon as possible after completing the task entrusted by Senior Bai. Do you think you're playing house? Come back as soon as possible. Yu Qianzhou also bowed to Zi. Nongzhu waved at them with her back facing them, indicating for them to leave. Yu Qianzhou didn't want to stay any longer when he met his nemesis. He unsheathed the long sword on his back, jumped on the sword and jumped into the air. Zi flew directly after him and played a spell in the air. The two of them quickly went far away. Yu Qianzhou's mood instantly became much better when he saw the vast ocean again. Who knew that Nongzhu's voice would suddenly resound in his ears? Stinking brat, I'm warning you. Don't have any designs on my daughter just because she's beautiful. If I find out, I'll castrate you. The voice was so loud that it made his ears numb. He staggered and almost fell off the sword. Zi immediately noticed and asked, Yu Qianzhou, what's wrong? It's very windy. Yu Qianzhou said awkwardly. He knew that the cultivation of the spirit severing stage was very terrifying. They were not far from the South Sea purple bamboo forest, so he didn't dare to say anything bad about Nongzhu. Zi looked around in confusion. It seemed that she didn't notice how strong the wind was. She turned her head and asked, Yu Qianzhou, I rarely go out. Where are we going now? To the Huaxia cultivation world? No hurry. Let's go back to the demon ghost region to see my master first. We'll listen to his opinion first. Yu Qianzhou said. Okay. Zi nodded heavily. Hearing that they were going to see Bai Changchun, she became solemn as if she was going to see a saint. One of them rode on the sword, and the other flew in the air. The woman followed beside Yu Qianzhou and quickly flew to the demon ghost region. Yu Qianzhou looked at Zi from time to time. He found that she and Nongzhu looked similar. However, it seemed that Zi didn't know that Nongzhu was her father. Otherwise, Nongzhu wouldn't have been so sneaky. There might be a big story behind it. They flew over the sea. 2 days later, they entered the gloomy and terrifying demon ghost region. From time to time, all kinds of demons and ghosts with ferocious faces flew over arrogantly. However, when they saw Yu Qianzhou, their faces immediately changed. They all flashed to the side with their hands down and lowered their heads. Yu Qianzhou was expressionless. He just flew forward as if he didn't see them. Ze looked at Yu Qianqiu in surprise from time to time. She didn't expect him to be so powerful in the demon ghost region. On the 1,000-mile lake, once they arrived at Obedient Island, the two of them landed immediately. Lady Mu walked over and called out, "Mr." Her gaze then shifted to Ze, and she bowed slightly in greeting. Yu Qianqiu asked, "Is my master here?" Miss Mu nodded with a smile. They immediately walked to the center of the island. Ze looked back at Miss Mu and asked curiously, "Who is she? Why haven't I seen her before?" Obviously, it wasn't the first time she came to the Qinli Island. Yu Qianqiu replied casually, "I'm new here." Bai Changchun was still sitting with his eyes closed. Ze stood at the door obediently. Yu Qianqiu came in and bowed, "Master, I'm back." Bai Changchun slowly opened his eyes and stared at Yu Qianqiu with a sharp gaze. Yu Qianqiu felt a little uneasy as he stared at him. Bai Changchun said, "Nongzhu has told you everything that happened, right?" "Yes." Yu Qianqiu said respectfully. Bai Changchun asked again, "Are you willing to do this?" F***ck. "Do I dare to refuse in front of you?" Yu Qianqiu said, "I'll follow your arrangements." Bai Changchun nodded and said to the door, "Ze, are you willing to help him?" Ze quickly came in respectfully and bowed, "Greetings, senior." Ze is willing. Then I won't say much. Yu Qianqiu has a lot of experience in the cultivation world. I'll have to trouble you to help him for the time being. Ze will obey senior's orders. You can go now. Bai Changchun said and slowly closed his eyes again. Yu Qianqiu hurriedly asked, "Master, what should we do this time? Don't you have any instructions?" However, Bai Changchun didn't say anything. After waiting for a while, the two had to leave obediently. Since they were told to leave now, they didn't dare to stay any longer. Not long after they arrived, they broke through the sky and left. Not long after they left, Yu Qianqiu heard Bai Changchun's voice again. Ze is actually Nongzhu's biological daughter. Nongzhu treats her like a pearl in his palm. Now, among all the cultivators in the Huashan realm in the world, Nongzhu is the only one who can stay out of this, and he is the only one who can help you. However, he must have a lot of scruples. The reason why I want Z to help you is not that she can help you much, but that Nongzhu will not leave her daughter alone. I think she will help you at the critical moment. F***ck. So that's how it is. They are really cunning. They are really experienced guys. Yu Qianqiu glanced at Ze and continued to fly forward. Ze had no clue, so she could only follow him. Yu Qianqiu had a toothache. With a follower following him, it would be difficult for him to teleport in the future. But to his relief, Bai Changchun didn't give him any instructions. He could only understand that he could do whatever he wanted, which was exactly what he wanted. In that case, he didn't have to rush. He wanted to go to Yuji's place. He had been thinking about the legendary Black Fire and Resurrection Grass in the 9th Netherworld Cave. Chapter 345. The two of them flew out of the Valley of Evil Wind. Yu Qianqiu landed on his sword and Ze followed. She asked in confusion, "Aren't we going to the Huaxia cultivation world? Why did you stop?" Yu Qianqiu pointed at the valley where the phosphorescence was faintly discernible and said, "Looking for something to prepare for going to the Huaxia cultivation world." Hearing him say so, Ze didn't ask any more. She followed him into the valley against the gusts of Yin wind. Before they got close, they heard someone shouting in the depths of the Yin fog, "Who are you? How dare you break into my valley of evil wind? Stop and reply." Yu Qianqiu. Yu Qianqiu shouted his name and continued to stride forward. The Yin fog in the valley rolled, and a horn sounded. The Yin fog dispersed to both sides, and the stairs leading to the valley appeared. As the two of them approached, they saw a group of armored generals behind Yuji quickly coming to welcome them. They lined up in 2 rows and made way for them. They cupped their fists and said, "Greetings, Mr. Welcome, Mr. I welcome you," Yuji said with a happy face. Suddenly, she noticed that there was a woman in purple beside him looking around curiously. She didn't look scared at all. Obviously, she wasn't an ordinary person, so she bowed to greet them. "I'm here to visit sister-in-law. I don't dare to trouble sister-in-law to welcome me." Yu Qianqiu raised his hand to help her up. He cupped his fists and smiled at the generals on both sides. Most of the generals knew him, and when they saw him call Yuji's sister-in-law, they immediately had a good impression of him, and all of them smiled. Zi heard Yu Qianqiu call Yuji's sister-in-law. She couldn't help but look at Yuji a few more times. A group of armored generals surrounded the three of them and walked to the Ghost King's Hall. It was still the magnificent Ghost King's Hall. However, the man who sang and cried every night was already dead, leaving only a woman in charge. After the group of people entered the Great Hall, Yuji invited Yu Qianqiu to sit on the throne. Yu Qianqiu did not stand on ceremony. With his current status, this seat was already set in stone. If he did not sit on it, no one would dare to sit on it. The former was about to call for a banquet when Yu Qianqiu glanced at Zi, who stood beside the throne. He waved his hand and said, "Sister-in-law, don't bother. I'm here for an important matter. I don't need to attend the banquet." Yuji also looked at Zi thoughtfully. Then she smiled and said, "We'll do as Mr. says. I wonder what Mr. is here for. Can we help you?" After saying that, she glanced at the generals below with a smile. The generals of the Ghost King level immediately said, "Mr., if you need us, just tell us. Then I won't stand on ceremony with you." Yu Qianqiu crossed his legs and said with a smile, "You may not know, but the cultivation world outside the demon ghost region is in chaos. My master ordered me and this lady in Zi to go out and resolve it. I'm here to take 2 things. These 2 things will be of great help to me on this trip." Yuji, who was standing on the other side, said doubtfully, "I don't know what it is that Mr. is interested in. As long as it is in the Evil Wind Valley, I will give it to Mr." Yu Qianqiu stood up, looked at the crowd, and said slowly, "The resurrection grass and the netherworld fire seed." The so-called netherworld fire seed was the black fire, one of the 3 true fire. He had learned this name from Miss Mu, because the demon ghosts didn't know about the 3 true fire. But when Yu Qianqiu asked, Miss Mu said that there was a kind of black fire in the 9th netherworld cave, which was called the netherworld fire seed. Silence. The Ghost King's Hall instantly became quiet. Zi looked at the crowd expressionlessly. She didn't know why the 2 things mentioned by Yu Qianqiu would cause such a reaction. Was there anyone in the demon ghost region who dared to refuse something that the disciple of Senior Bai asked for? After a long time, Yuji said with a wry smile, "The 2 things that Mr. wants do exist here, but I'm afraid that no one in the entire demon ghost region has the ability to get them, let alone us. To be honest, Mr., the torture commissioner has also come to the 9th netherworld cave to get the resurrection grass, but even with his high cultivation, he couldn't go deep into the cave, unless..." Zi was surprised. She didn't expect that there was a place in the world that Bai Changchun couldn't go to. Yu Qianqiu was silent for a while. He knew that Bai Changchun wasn't omnipotent. Bai Changchun also couldn't go to the mysterious place under the 1,000-mile lake, and he had heard from Yuji about the 9th netherworld cave. Because it was a passage to the underworld, it had a special characteristic, and not everyone with high cultivation could go there. Yu Qianqiu frowned and said, "Sister-in-law, do you mean that only the cultivation of the ghost saint late stage can go there?" "That's right." Yuji's face turned serious and said, "The journey to the netherworld is a one-way trip. It burns away all vitality, and humans and ghosts walk different paths. Even if the cultivation of the ghost saint late stage wants to go to the bottom of the cave, he must be baptized by the netherworld flame. Crossing the netherworld flame sea is the door to the 9th netherworld. At that point, there will be no vitality in the human world. Once he returns to the human world, there will be a catastrophe to annihilate him instantly, so it is said that there is no return. Think about our cultivation, not to mention the netherworld flame sea, I'm afraid that we can't even withstand the evil strong wind in front of us, and our souls will be blown away before we reach the halfway point. I still want to go and have a look. Yu Qianzhou's words were shocking, and the ghost generals below were in an uproar. When Zi heard that the 9th netherworld cave was so powerful that even Bai Changchun couldn't go, her face changed. She didn't know why this guy was so overconfident and insisted on trying. She thought that she wanted to protect him, so if he went, she would have to go with him. Actually, she didn't know what Yu Qianzhou was thinking. The cultivation world suddenly had such a big change, and he didn't know when this matter would end. He was afraid that the life insurance of his parents, who were mortals, wouldn't be able to wait until then, so he wanted to pick the resurrection grass to refine the 7 orifices exquisite pill to extend his parents' lives. There was also the black fire, which was ranked higher than the blue fire. Since it was ranked higher than the blue fire, it must be even more powerful. If he encountered any unfavorable situation, he would be able to deal with it. Since Mr. insists, then I will go to the entrance first. At that time, Mr. will know that what Yu said is true. Yu said helplessly. Thank you, sister-in-law. Yu Qianzhou nodded, and suddenly said, Is the old man Yan Tuo that sister-in-law told me about last time still alive? Yu smiled and said, Since Mr. has instructed, I will naturally leave him alive for Mr. to deal with. Good. Yu Qianzhou clapped and said with a smile, I believe that sister-in-law didn't tell him whether his son is alive or dead. He knew that Yu was a smart woman, so if Yan Tuo said that he said his son was still here, Yu would make plans. As expected, Yu said with a smile, Since Mr. said his son is still here, I will naturally smooth things over for Mr. Zi was a little confused by the strange question and answer between the two. Yu Qianzhou laughed heartily and said, Back then, I had some unresolved grievances with him on Fuxian Island. Today is the time to write it off. I will have to trouble sister-in-law to invite him over. I believe he will be very willing to go to the 9th netherworld cave to find his son. I also want to see how powerful the 9th netherworld cave is. Yu giggled and nodded to the people below. A general cupped his fists and left the Ghost King Hall. To these people, the life and death of a cultivator was really nothing. At this moment, no matter how stupid Zi was, she understood what Yu Qianzhou was trying to do. He was obviously trying to trick others to die so that they could scout for him. She immediately said coldly, Yu Qianzhou, you're not fit to be Senior Bai's disciple if you act like this. What do you know, lass? Old man Bai is the one who kills people like flies. Yu Qianzhou snorted and sat back on the throne. He sneered and said, Zi, don't forget what my master and your father said before we came. It seems that I am the one in charge between you and me. If you think that there is something wrong with my actions, you can go back to Obedient Island and complain to my master. Say that you are not ashamed to be associated with me and withdraw from this matter. Ziyi's face was as cold as frost. She was so angry that she couldn't speak. However, she couldn't really say such words to Bai Changchun. Bai Changchun asked her to do this, and she felt very honored. How could she give up halfway? And Yu Qianzhou also saw this, so he said such words. Chapter 346. Yan Tuo, whom Yu Qianzhou hadn't seen for a long time, had arrived. He was once an elder of Fuxian Island, but he was now a prisoner. He was lifted up like a little chick. The Ghost King threw him to the ground, and his armor clanked. He cupped his fists and retreated to the side. Yan Tuo staggered to his feet. His hair was white and messy, and his clothes were tattered. There were bloodstains on his torn clothes, and it looked like he had been whipped. He looked like he had aged a few decades in an instant, and he didn't look like the elder who ordered people around. Yu Qianzhou looked down coldly. If he hadn't been too arrogant in the past, he wouldn't have been tricked by a few jokes. However, Yu Qianzhou didn't expect him to age so much. He had taken good care of himself in the past, but now his hair was all white, and his face was full of wrinkles. If he didn't know who he was, he wouldn't have recognized him. It should be known that the higher one's cultivation base was, the slower they aged. How could this be? After pondering for a while, Yu Qianzhou understood. At such a young age, his dantian was sealed, and his cultivation base was sealed for several months. Without the nourishment from the circulation of true origin, he naturally aged faster. Moreover, he was tortured. He didn't know how Yu Ji tormented him after she understood that it was fine as long as he didn't kill him. Like an old man over 100 years old in the secular world, Yan Tua staggered around the hall. Finally, his lifeless eyes came into contact with the ice-cold gaze of the person sitting on the throne, and he abruptly realized that it was not the gaze of the smiling woman. Then, he looked at the entire face. Yan Tuo's pupils shrank, and he yelled with a hoarse voice, Yu Qianzhou, it's you. He stumbled a few steps forward, but a ghost general immediately took a step forward and shouted, "How dare you!" He slapped him back to the ground. Ze couldn't bear to watch any longer. She clenched her teeth and said to Yu Qianzhou, "If you want him to die, just say the word. Why do you have to torture him like this?" Yu Qianzhou looked at her coldly and didn't say anything to her. Instead, he said to the people below, "Old man Yan Tua, we haven't seen each other for many years. I didn't think that we would meet again. Where did the arrogance that you used to order me around go?" Yan Tua got up again, looked around, and then looked at the person sitting high up on the throne. Instantly, he understood everything. The person in charge now was Yu Qianzhou. There was a trace of blood at the corner of Yan Ta's mouth as he shook his white hair and smiled bitterly. "Looks like I've been deceived by you. You have enmity with my son, so how could you not kill him? I'm sure my son has already died miserably in your hands." Yu Qianzhou sneered and said, "I never lie. If I say your son is here, then your son is naturally here. Besides, you are a dying man, so there is no need for me to lie to you." As soon as he said this, Ze immediately looked at him suspiciously. As for the generals and Yu Ji, their expressions were indescribable. They knew the ins and outs of Yu Qianzhou, but they didn't expect the dignified disciple of the Devil Region's torturer to lie without batting an eyelid. Moreover, he did it so openly in front of so many people. If they didn't know about it, it would be hard for them not to believe it. Yan Ta's murky eyes suddenly lit up, and he immediately said, "Yu Qianzhou, where is my son? Can you let me see him?" "Of course, no problem at all." Yu Qianzhou waved his hand in a rather forthright manner. In the end, Yu Ji and the others were stunned. They didn't know where he was going to find a son to meet. Unexpectedly, he said, "However, your son went against me in every aspect in the supporting Immortal Island, so it's hard for me to vent my anger. Now that both of you are here, there has to be someone left to appease me. What do you want?" Yan Ta asked. "It's very simple. I never do things that are ruthless." Yu Qianzhou stood up and said coldly, "I just arrived here today, and I'm here to settle this matter. Either I remove the seal on you, let you go, or I kill your son. Or you stay and continue to suffer, and I'll let your son go. Only one of you can live. Make your choice now." The group of ghost generals instantly became interested, and their gazes focused on Yan Ta. Yan Ta hesitated for a moment, then immediately replied, "Yu Qianzhou, I hope you keep your word. I stay, and you let my son go." The atmosphere in the hall instantly became heavy, and the group of ghost generals immediately looked at Yan Tua in a different way. It was admiration. Damn it. What a deep father-son relationship. Yu Qianzhou glanced at Ze, who was moved, and he was rather unhappy. He wanted to watch the dark side of human nature and teach this girl a lesson. He wanted her to know what it meant to be a bastard who could see through human nature. He wanted her to know that a pitiful person must have a hateful side, so that she wouldn't be disobedient in the future. Now, she would probably become even worse. Yu Qianzhou didn't know that Yan Ta had begged people to accompany him to the Demon Ghost region, but when people heard about the Demon Ghost region, they became timid, and no one was willing to come. Therefore, he knew that his chances of survival were slim, but in order to save his son, he still came. He was already prepared to die. Although you treated your son well, you didn't teach him well, and you harmed yourself and your son. You still have to pay the price. Yu Qianqiu squinted his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Remove the seal on his dantian, and let him go to the cave to pick up his son. Let them go together." His words sounded nice, but everyone understood that Yu Qianqiu had already sentenced Yan Ta to death. Yu Ji nodded to the people below, and someone immediately went to remove the seal on Yan Ta. Zi bit her lips and didn't say anything. When Yan Tua heard this, he froze in place. Only when his body trembled and the vital energy in his dantian surged out and quickly circulated to nourish his almost withered body did he believe it was true. He looked at Yu Qianqiu in a daze. Yu Qianqiu took out a few spirit pills and threw them out. He said, "Recover quickly. Later, I will pick up your son and leave together." After the seal was removed, Yan Ta immediately became more spirited. He sucked the spirit pills into his palm, stared at Yu Qianqiu, and said slowly, "Yu Qianqiu, I won't tell anyone about what happened in the demon ghost region, or else I will be punished by heaven." Then he put the spirit pills into his mouth and sat down cross-legged. No one in the hall spoke, and they all looked at Yan Ta. Knowing his fate, everyone's expression was one of sympathy or pity. Yu Qianqiu silently put his hands behind his back. He really wanted to let Yan Ta go, but now was not the time to show his soft side. At this time, it was necessary to sacrifice a person to show his indifference, because there might be a day when he would take over the demon ghost region. Demons and ghosts couldn't be suppressed unless they were strong. Bai Changchun's actions were very effective, and it was also a warning. In the canyon that was less than a dozen miles away from the Ghost King's hall, gloomy clouds and fog were rolling. The temperature was close to freezing, and the howling wind made strange sounds. Not even a blade of grass grew in the surroundings. At the bottom of the Black Canyon, a trumpet-shaped hole suddenly appeared. It was wide on the outside and narrow on the inside. From the traces on the hole, it could be seen that it was caused by the cold, bone-chilling wind that blew out of the hole for many years. On the top of the cliff opposite the hole, a group of people stood in a row. In the middle were Yu Qianqiu, Yu Ji, Zi, and Yan Ta. Chapter 347. There's a top-grade spirit stone mine inside, and your son is mining here. Perhaps to make his words more convincing, Yu Qianqiu took out a purple spirit stone and played with it in his hand. After seeing it, Yan Tua was a little surprised, and then he looked at the hideous cave entrance and said, "The top-grade spirit stone is almost extinct in the cultivation world, but I heard that it appeared in the grand auction last time. I didn't expect there to be a top-grade spirit stone mine here. Do you want to go in and look for it yourself, or do I have to help you get it out?" As he spoke, Yu Qianqiu clenched his fist, and in one breath, he sucked up all the spiritual qi in the top-grade spirit stone in his hand. Then there was a muffled sound in his palm, and as he opened his palm, a gust of chilly wind swept away a cloud of dust. Yan Tua did not dare to trouble him. He thought that he would send someone to bring his son out. After all, it was very difficult to find someone in such a big cave. It was not good to trouble others in the current situation. However, when he saw the chilly wind blowing at the cave entrance, Yan Tua frowned. How could there be anyone mining in this kind of cave? He felt that something was wrong, but he could not figure it out at the moment. There's a whole other world inside. Yu Qianqiu seemed to have seen through his concerns, and his tone was a little disdainful, as if he was telling him that if he wanted to kill him, it would only take a word, there was no need to go through so much trouble. A long sword shot out and stopped in the void of the canyon in front of his feet. Yu Qianqiu stepped on the flying sword and flew towards the cave entrance first. Yan Tuo's expression was a little awkward. If he wanted to kill him, it would only take a word, there was really no need to go through so much trouble. He stomped on the ground and chased after Yu Qianqiu. When the others saw that Yu Qianqiu suddenly flew towards the cave entrance, their expressions changed greatly, and the group of ghost generals looked at Yu Ji. Yu Ji's face turned slightly pale. She had made it very clear to him, and she really didn't understand why he had to take such a risk. If something happened to the punishment envoy's disciple here, she might also lose her life. Although she was afraid, she believed that there must be a reason why Yu Qianqiu dared to do this, because he didn't look like someone who would suffer losses. Ze bit her lips. Although she didn't like Yu Qianqiu's actions, it was her duty to protect him. No matter how scared she was, she couldn't run away. Just as he was about to fly over, Yu Ji grabbed his wrist and shook her head slightly. As soon as Yu Qianqiu landed at the cave entrance and put away his flying sword, a cold wind suddenly blew out from the cave, blowing right into his face. He felt as if he had fallen into an ice cellar, and his body slowly stiffened. The temperature here was too low. No matter what, he was still a nascent soul cultivator, but he didn't expect to fall into an ice cave. He couldn't even circulate his true essence to resist, and even his soul felt like it was swaying, and his mind was faintly dazed. Yu Qianqiu was shocked. He bit the tip of his tongue and woke up. He didn't expect that he couldn't resist at the entrance of the cave with his cultivation. This 9th netherworld cave really lived up to its name. In an instant, a thin layer of green flame ignited around his body, wrapping his whole body in it. His stiff body immediately returned to normal. It seemed that as one of the 3 true flames, the green flame was not to be trifled with. When the cold wind with a faint black aura touched the green flame, it made a sizzling sound, like water splashing into a pan of oil. Yu Qianqiu suddenly discovered that while the green flame was resisting the cold wind, he seemed to be consuming it as well, but the rate of consumption was very slow. Yu Qianqiu was stunned for a moment, then immediately became happy. Although the green flame was being consumed, it could obviously resist the cold wind from the netherworld. With the large amount of green fire element stored in his body, he might be able to go deep into the cave. However, he seemed to have forgotten that he was at the entrance of the 9th netherworld cave, and the situation behind was unknown. It seemed that it was a bit too early to be happy. Yu Qianqiu turned around and looked at Yan Tuo, who followed him. Yan Tuo obviously didn't expect the cold wind to be so powerful, but his cultivation was obviously much higher than Yu Qianqiu's. Shivering, a transparent ball of light immediately rose from his body and enveloped him. He released his protective aura to resist the cold wind. With the protection, he had the mood to look around. After seeing Yu Qianqiu wrapped in the green flame, Yan Tuo was a little surprised. Obviously, he had never seen it before. Moreover, this flame seemed to be able to subdue the cold wind. The strong wind actually couldn't extinguish it and couldn't move it at all. In fact, even Yu Qianqiu himself didn't know the reason. In fact, with the high temperature of the green flame, it was similar to an item of extreme yang, which could subdue yin items. The cold wind that blew out from the 9th netherworld cave was exactly yin qi, which could subdue yin items. Yu Qianqiu made an inviting gesture to him. Yan Tuo nodded his head, but he looked at the gloomy cave suspiciously. However, he already had no way out. He could only hope that Yu Qianqiu didn't lie to him, or else he would die no matter what. When he walked into the cave, his eyes immediately became incomparably dark, and he couldn't see the road in front of him at all. However, the green flame that appeared behind him indicated that Yu Qianqiu had also followed him in. Yan Tuo instantly felt a lot more at ease. He felt that his thoughts were a little unnecessary, because he really couldn't think of any benefits that the other party would gain from lying to him. The people on the opposite cliff all stared at the entrance of the cave without blinking, watching the two gradually disappear inside. The deeper they went, the more shocked they became. The cold wind was no longer blowing in all directions like at the entrance of the cave. It actually had a tendency to gradually solidify, hitting Yan Tuo's upstanding qi. With a pu sound, the fire on Yu Qianqiu's body immediately rose a little. Otherwise, the green flame wouldn't be able to offset the attack of the cold wind in time and would hit his body. At the same time, Yu Qianqiu carefully stood behind Yan Tuo's upstanding qi, trying his best to let Yan Tuo, who was walking in front, resist the cold wind. As expected, the consumption of the green fire element was greatly reduced. The passage inside the cave suddenly turned, and the two of them stopped at the same time. Before they could turn the corner, they heard a rapid whistling sound coming from inside. The chilly wind whirled out of the passage so quickly that it almost made them lose their footing. This was not the case of the wind blowing directly out of the passage, so one could imagine how strong the wind inside was. Yen Tuo looked back and saw that Yu Qianzhou's expression was indescribable. His heart instantly turned cold. Why did it seem like this was also his first time here? Let's go, Yu Qianzhou said, but he realized that his voice couldn't travel far at all. It was as if the wind had blown it to the back, so he shouted again and made a hand gesture. Yen Tuo nodded with a grave expression. The upstanding qi on his body instantly became a lot more turbid. Clearly, he had strengthened his defense. Yu Qianzhou continued to follow behind him, and the two of them turned in with heavy steps. The strong wind that carried a black baleful aura attacked them, and the two of them were shocked once again. Yen Tuo felt that the upstanding qi that was supported by his quintessential essence was rapidly depleting under the attack of the cold wind and the baleful aura. Although Yu Qianzhou was hiding behind him, he could also feel the rapid depletion of the green flame. He immediately increased the output of the fire element. He was slightly better off, as he had sufficient fire element reserves in his body. He only needed to use the green flame to defend, and the consumption of his quintessential essence would not be much. If it really did not work out, he could still instantly hide back in Utopia. Therefore, he was not afraid of any danger at all. However, Yen Tuo's expression changed drastically. If the quintessential essence in his body was completely depleted, just how powerful would the cold wind and baleful aura be? No one had personally experienced it before, and from the looks of it, it was definitely not simple. The result could be easily imagined. The path of the cave started to go downwards, and the two of them continued forward. The cold wind became stronger, and the black baleful aura became thicker. Yu Qianzhou's green flame and Yen Tuo's quintessential essence were also being depleted faster and faster. However, the cave was so deep that they could not see the bottom. They had no idea when they would reach the end. In the darkness, the two of them were as small as fireflies, feeling their way forward carefully. After walking for an unknown period of time, Yen Tuo's face gradually turned pale. He felt that there was not much quintessential essence left in his body, and the end seemed to be far away. Yu Qianzhou also realized that something was wrong with his situation and immediately guessed the reason. Although he had wanted Yen Tuo to block the disaster at the front, he did not want Yen Tuo to die so early. He touched the storage bag at his waist, wanting to give Yen Tuo some spirit pills to recover his quintessential essence so that Yen Tuo could hold on for a while longer. However, he realized that it was difficult to even communicate in this situation. It was really troublesome to give him spirit pills. If he gave the spirit pills to Yen Tuo, they would definitely be blown away by the wind before they reached his hands. However, if he were to exchange them with his opponent, who had a higher cultivation than him, he would definitely notice that something was wrong and guess that he was lying to him. If the other party suddenly launched a sneak attack, it was better to let Yen Tuo exhaust himself until he had no more energy to attack before giving him the spirit pills. Yu Qianzhou could not help but be on guard. As expected, Yen Tuo suddenly turned around. Under the illumination of the green fire, his faint green expression was somewhat sinister as he shouted, "Yu Qianzhou. This is not a spirit stone mine at all. My son, Yen Shu, could not possibly mine here. Why did you trick me to come here? What kind of damned place is this?" As he was speaking with the wind, Yu Qianzhou could hear every single word clearly. The green fire suddenly expanded by a lot. Yu Qianzhou raised his brows and sneered. It was very difficult for his voice to be transmitted when he spoke with the wind in his direction. Moreover, with his current cultivation, it was impossible for him to transmit his voice. Thus, he raised his hand that was wrapped in the green fire and extended a finger to write in the air. The words, "Ninth Netherworld Cave," appeared in the green fire. Immediately after, he waved his hand and the 4 green fire words were put away. At this moment, he could not waste the green fire. Since Yen Tuo was able to assume the position of an elder on supporting Immortal Island, he wasn't an ignorant person. After he saw the words "Ninth Hell Cave," he pondered for a moment before his expression instantly changed, and he seemed as if he'd never imagined that he would come to this place of legend one day. He immediately gritted his teeth and said, "In that case, my son, Yen Shu, is long gone. He has a grudge against you. Did he die in your hands?" As he said that, his hand subconsciously touched his waist. He must be muddle-headed. Why the F***ck would he touch if he had nothing? Yu Qianzhou looked at his empty waist and sneered again as he extended his finger and wrote a few words. "Do you understand now? Isn't it a little too late?" His finger was like chalk and his palm was like a blackboard eraser. The moment he wrote, it was immediately erased. Yen Tuo only remembered that on the day he was captured, his storage bag had already been confiscated. On the other hand, Yu Qianzhou clapped and pulled his palms together. A green flying sword appeared between his palms. Yu Qianzhou used the sword as a pen and quickly wrote a line of words. "Old thing, you are not my opponent now. If you don't want to die, continue to lead the way." When Yen Tuo heard this, he did not care how the green flying sword appeared. He suddenly shook his head of white hair and laughed wildly. His laughter was filled with indescribable grief and indignation. He then clenched his fists and said, "Don't want to die? Yu Qianzhou, don't try to lie to me. We are already deep in the cave. Even if you let me leave now, I won't be able to make it out. Today, I will die no matter what. But even if I die, I won't let you be happy." Chapter 348. I'd like to see how you're going to make me unhappy. A row of green words appeared again, full of contempt. Yen Tuo laughed wildly. The protective aura around his body slowly disappeared, and his flesh and blood started to shrink. In the blink of an eye, he was only skin and bones. On the contrary, his abdomen started to swell up. This scene caused Yu Qianzhou's pupils to shrink. He could no longer look down on Yen Tuo. He immediately thought of something terrifying, self-destructing his elixir field. For cultivators, the elixir field was the energy storage of the entire body. The consequences of self-destructing the elixir field could be imagined. After reaching the nascent soul stage, the nascent soul in the elixir field was formed from pure energy. At this time, the 3 souls and 7 spirits in the body were gathered in the nascent soul, not in the body. Therefore, for cultivators who reached the nascent soul stage, ordinary external invasions wouldn't cause any substantial harm. At most, it would hurt the body, and it wouldn't be difficult to heal it. However, self-destruction after reaching the nascent soul stage was more powerful, but at the same time, it would also destroy the 3 souls and 7 spirits. In other words, if a cultivator of the nascent soul stage self-destructed, it meant that he wouldn't even have the chance to reincarnate. If a cultivator of the nascent soul stage self-destructed, there would be a next life. Yen Tuo's cultivation was in the early stage of the tribulation stage. Although he had used up a lot of his true essence, the explosion of the nascent soul stage would be terrible. Yu Qianzhou definitely wouldn't have it easy. From the looks of it, he was afraid that the explosion wouldn't be powerful enough, so he gathered all the energy in his abdomen. If it was an ordinary person, the hole was only 10 feet wide. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult to move forward or backward. Being detonated by a cultivator of the tribulation stage was equivalent to a heavy bomb exploding next to them. Fortunately, Yu Qianzhou wasn't an ordinary person. He had a third way of retreat, which was utopia. However, it was also quite frustrating for him. It wasn't easy for him to get here, and he didn't have the chance to leave a teleportation coordinate. Once Yen Tuo self-destructed, he would have to start all over again. Damn it. I've always thought that I'm ruthless, but today, I've met someone even more ruthless. It's fine if he doesn't want to live in this life, but there's actually someone who doesn't even want to live in the next life. Yu Qianzhou's expression twitched. The flying sword in his hand quickly drew a few words, "You're crazy." The skeleton-like Yen Tuo let out a dry and hoarse voice. He laughed cruelly and said, "It's you, Yu Qianzhou, who has gone too far." As he spoke, the protective upstanding chi outside his body suddenly retracted into his body. He was going to self-destruct. Bastard. Bastard. Yu Qianqiu closed his eyes and shrank his head. Just as he was about to flash back to utopia, he heard painful sounds coming from Yan Ta's throat. Before Yu Qianqiu left, he opened his eyes to take a look. Immediately, his eyes widened, and he didn't want to leave. As it turned out, Yan Tua, who had withdrawn his protective upstanding qi, was immediately attacked and eroded by the chilly wind and the black spirits. The clothes on his body disappeared like ashes, followed by the hair on his body. Then, his skin was shaved off from his back as if he was taking off his clothes. Then, the bloody muscles that had just been revealed slid off his bones and were blown away. Yu Qianqiu, who had been hiding at the back, immediately received the reward of Yan Tuo's flesh. Then, there were his organs, liver, and lungs. It was really disgusting. The green fire outside Yu Qianqiu's body surged, turning everything that came into contact with it into ashes. Yan Tuo's tenaciously standing skeleton immediately withered when it came into contact with the black spirits. Under the attack of the black spirits and chilly wind, it was torn into pieces and blown away with the wind. He died just like that? What the hell is this? Yu Qianqiu couldn't help but shiver. Anyone who saw someone die like that before their eyes would also shudder. He looked around and realized that he was the only one left. Only the shrill whistling of the wind lingered in his ears. Seeing that the chilly wind and the evil spirits were so powerful, he also had some thoughts of retreating. But a wave of determination rose from the bottom of his heart. He gritted his teeth and continued to walk forward without hesitation. However, there were 2 green flying swords in each of his hands, and the green fire outside his body had grown a lot bigger. The people on the cliff outside the cave looked solemn and uneasy. The bearded Sai Zhongfei walked a few steps to the front of Yu Ji and cupped his fists, saying, "Madam, we can't just stand by and watch anymore. While Mr. hasn't gone too deep, I would like to go and call Mr. back. If it's any later, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for us to find Mr. If that's the case, he didn't finish his sentence, but everyone understood what he was trying to say. If Yu Qianqiu died, the torturer would be enraged, and no one would be able to escape responsibility. Everyone's gaze fell on Yu Ji. Yu Ji hesitated for a while and finally nodded, saying, "Zhongling, Fu Zhe, listen up." "Yes." A burly general also came out and cupped his fists together with Sai Zhongfei. It turned out that Sai Zhongfei's surname was really Zhang, but he wasn't called Zhongfei, but Zhongling. "I order the 2 of you to bring Mr. back quickly. If Mr. is unwilling, you can bring him back forcefully if necessary. I'll bear all the consequences." Yu Ji ordered decisively. She was indeed a woman who had followed Meng Yan for many years. At this time, she finally showed her strong female side. "Yes, sir." After the 2 of them received the order, they nodded to each other. They covered their bodies with Gang Qi, and immediately turned into 2 shadows. They shot into the 9 netherworld cave on the opposite side, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Based on this point alone, the cultivation of these 2 people was obviously much higher than Yu Qianqiu and Yan Tuo. "I'll go too." Zi had just finished speaking when she was pulled back by Yu Ji again. Yu Ji shook her head helplessly and said, "Miss, from your conversation with Mr. I can tell that your identity is not ordinary. If anything happens to you, I won't let you in no matter what." Yu Ji gently waved her hand at the 9th netherworld cave. Immediately, 10 generals of the Ghost King flew out and directly landed at the entrance of the 9th netherworld cave. Faint black light balls surged out from their bodies and wrapped around themselves, protecting the entire 9th netherworld cave. The well-trained army was instantly displayed. Zi looked at them silently. She knew that she couldn't deal with the Ghost King alone. She sighed and gently broke free from Yu Ji's hand. She stood there quietly and didn't say a word. After walking for a while, Yu Qianqiu realized that this cave seemed to only have strong yin winds and evil spirits. There weren't any other dangers. Instead of slowly walking and exhausting his energy, it was better. After Yu Qianqiu had an idea, he gritted his teeth and jogged. The black miasma became denser and denser, and the consumption of fire elements became faster and faster. He didn't know how far underground it was. After jogging for nearly a kilometer, the tunnel turned again. Just as he turned, he felt the pressure suddenly increase and the wind became stronger. He only heard a strange F***ck cry, and the moment the sound left his mouth, he was blown back by the wind. He dodged and jumped here and there, rolling and crawling back to the turning. A group of black wind blades shot out and hit the stone wall at the turning. With a series of clanging sounds, they dispersed into black miasma and were carried away by the wind. Yu Qianqiu hid in a corner and stared blankly at the black fiend that had been blown away. He understood. So the black fiend they had encountered on the way here were formed by the dissipation of these black wind blades. He wanted to release his divine sense to check, but he didn't dare because he had already tried it once before. The evil spirits could actually corrode divine sense and make him cry out in pain. It was really strange. After waiting for a while, several waves of wind blades flew out one after another. There would be a wave every few seconds. After calculating the time, he took out a piece of dark steel and threw it out. With a few dang 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 sounds, the whole piece of dark steel was cut into a few pieces and fell down. It rolled on the ground and flipped over, and was blown away by the wind. F***ck. What the hell were the wind blades formed by the black miasma? They cut dark steel like cutting tofu. It was too fierce. Who could pass through here? Yu Qianqiu felt gloomy. His gaze fell on the dark stone wall and he was stunned. The stone wall here seemed to be different from the previous ones. Under the illumination of the green fire, it seemed to have an additional metallic luster. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up. He took out the Ghost King's token that Yu Ji gave him years ago from his storage bag. Comparing the two, it was exactly the same. This passage was actually formed by the dark iron structure. Yu Qianqiu silently threw the token back into the storage bag. Now was not the time to deal with the dark iron. A wave of wind blades shot out, and a green light with raging flames flashed past. With a series of dang-dang sounds, the wind blades that were hit turned into evil spirits and were blown away by the wind. Yu Qianqiu kept the green fire flying sword. He was confident. Since the green fire flying sword could restrain the wind blades, it would be easy. In the blink of an eye, dozens of green fire flying swords circled around him. Yu Qianqiu turned around and saw a wave of wind blades coming at him. The green fire flying sword quickly flashed out dozens of them and broke the oncoming wind blades. As for the others, as long as they did not hurt his body, he would let them fly away. Seeing that the attack was effective, Yu Qianqiu immediately increased his speed. The dozens of green fire flying swords opened a path in front of him. Zhang Ling and Fu, on the other hand, felt their way in the dark. Because the two of them were ghost cultivators, the darkness did not affect them. In addition, ghost cultivators were not afraid of the wind. They were only afraid of the evil spirits. Originally, the evil spirits had no effect on ghost cultivators of the netherworld. However, the two of them were not real ghost cultivators of the netherworld. They had been in the mortal world for too long. Their bodies had accumulated a lot of human qi. Once they came into contact with the evil spirits, their souls might scatter. Cultivators like Yan Tuo originally had a mortal body, so they naturally had more human qi. However, once they encountered the evil spirits, they would naturally end up in a miserable state. They had not seen Yu Qianqiu yet. The two of them were a little anxious. While communicating with each other, they kept avoiding the topic that Yu Qianqiu might have already met with misfortune. At this moment, the two of them suddenly exclaimed in unison. The two of them could see in the dark. They saw a few broken pieces in front of them being blown by the wind. When they rolled to their feet, the two of them stepped on a piece at the same time and picked it up to take a look. They saw that it was a piece of dark steel. The cross-section was neatly cut, and there were spots that were eroded by the evil spirits. It is beyond our expectation. It seems that Mr. has already reached there. Fu Zhe transmitted his voice. Zhang Ling nodded and transmitted his voice, let's go. Let's go take a look and see if we can catch up. The two of them quickly ran forward. Originally, the two of them could fly, but flying consumed too much vitality of ghost cultivators. They were afraid that they would not have enough vitality to support the protective gang chi to return. It was the same with teleportation. Besides, when teleportation was used, they could not teleport with the protective gang chi. After a period of time, the two of them reached the turning point. The clashing sound of wind blades in front of them stopped them in their tracks. Chapter 349. Yu Qianqiu was nowhere to be seen. The two of them looked at each other speechlessly. There was only one reason for this. Yu Qianqiu had already gone in. Whether he was dead or alive was unknown. However, the two of them did not dare to advance any further. Yu Qianqiu had the green fire to restrain the black fiend, and unknowingly, they had already walked very far. Although the two ghost generals had high cultivation, they had already expended a large amount of vital chi to reach this point. If they continued to advance, they would expend too much vital chi, and they would really not be able to return. What's more, the black fiend here had already erupted in the form of wind blades. Ordinary treasures in the mortal world would not be able to withstand it at all and would instead be destroyed by it. The most terrifying thing was that the black demon wind blades could break through the protective upstanding chi. How could the two ghost generals make it through if ordinary mortal treasures and protective upstanding chi could not block it? At this place, only soul formation stage and ghost sage stage experts could use their tyrannical cultivation to force their way through. Mister, you are indeed the disciple of the disciplinary envoy. You even dare to barge into such a place. Fu Zhe exclaimed. Zhang Ling remained silent for a while before replying, "It's impossible for us to barge into this place, and we shouldn't stay here for long either. It's better to return and report to Madam." The two ghost generals were worried that something bad had happened to Yu Qianqiu, but neither of them mentioned it. They nodded at each other and quickly retreated the way they came. Inside, Yu Qianqiu was very busy. He was not worried anymore. He jogged all the way, with the green fire flying swords circling around him to open a path. He was not afraid of the baleful wind blades. The Guiyuan sword technique that he cultivated allowed him to control multiple swords at the same time, which allowed him to deal with the situation with ease. Streaks of azure light moved as fast as lightning and protected him along the way. Yu Qianqiu became excited and even felt that this was a good place to cultivate the sword technique of Guiyuan. He was considering whether or not he should bring his two disciples here to cultivate in the future. However, he temporarily rejected the idea right after. Coming here to cultivate the origin convergence sword technique probably wouldn't do without the protection of azure fire. Little sister, go ahead boldly. Move forward. Don't look back. While Zhang Xian was singing along the way, his face suddenly warped in shock. The blue fire attribute energy in his body was running out. Damn it. He was overjoyed. He had to return and replenish his blue fire elemental essence. Yu Qianqiu immediately looked around and finally found a crack in the stone wall. He took out a silver ball and stuck it inside. Who would have thought that as soon as his hand left the ball, spots would quickly appear on the silver ball, as if it was being corroded by something unknown. Not long after, the silver ball had melted and disappeared. Yu Qianqiu frowned. With a wave of his hand, he summoned a flying sword made of green flames and stabbed it into the wall. With a turn of the sword, he pulled it out and a hole appeared in the wall. Once again, he took out a silver ball and stuffed it into the hole. Then, he used his palm to rub it with all his might. The nether iron wall instantly melted and sealed the hole. He heaved a sigh of relief when he sensed that the silver ball was safe and sound. Then, he disappeared along with the group of flying swords. After appearing briefly in Utopia, he immediately appeared next to the azure flames burning beneath Twilight Valley and jumped into the sea of flames to absorb them. It had been a day since Zhang Ling and Fu Zhe had left the cave. The moment they emerged, they flew to the cliff on the other side. Everyone looked at the entrance of the cave. After confirming that Yu Qianqiu had not followed them out, they turned to the two generals in shock. Zhang Ling cupped his fists at Yu Ji and said, "Madam, the two of us were still a step too late." "What?" Yu Ji and Purple Dress cried out at the same time. The others were also dumbfounded. "Madam, don't misunderstand," Zhang Ling explained. "When the two of us reached the end of the 9 nether second fold, we found that Mr. had already entered the 3rd fold. However, our cultivation was limited, so we didn't dare to chase after Mr., so we retreated and reported to Madam." Yu Ji looked at Fu Zhe and asked with lingering fear, "Is that so?" "That should be the case." "Madam, take a look." Fu Zhe took out the piece of profound iron and handed it to Yu Ji. "This should have been left behind by Sir when he was testing the power of the Black Fiend wind blades at the entrance of the 3 folds. If Sir was not confident in entering, he should have turned around and returned, and the two of us would have encountered Sir. However, when we arrived, we did not see Sir. Sir must have been confident after testing, so he charged in. What you say is reasonable." Yu Ji looked at the profound iron that had been corroded by the Black Fiend and nodded. Although they said this, everyone was still worried. No one in the entire Chilling Wind Valley had ever entered the 3 folds of the 9 nether cave. How could one pass through that place without reaching the Ghost Sage stage? Moreover, Yu Qianqiu was only at the nascent soul stage. The difference was truly too great. Purple Dress sighed with relief. She did not know much about the 9 nether cave. Hearing that Yu Qianqiu was fine, there was nothing to worry about and they could just continue waiting. This was probably the so-called ignorant were fearless. Yu Qianqiu was not in a hurry to return to the 9 nether cave. Instead, he rushed to Utopia and had a hearty meal with wine and meat. After eating, he wiped his mouth and returned to the passage to continue moving forward. Being in the cave, he could not calculate the time. He did not know how far he had walked. There was another turning intersection. In front of him, countless wind blades flew randomly and hit the turning wall. As there were too many wind blades, the collision between them caused some wind blades to not hit the wall and turn into Black Fiend. They changed their angle and flew towards this passage with the help of the wind. So that was it. Yu Qianqiu found the origin of the wind blades in this passage, but the dense ones in front still needed to be verified. He raised his eyebrows. Relying on the blue fire flying sword's ability to restrain the wind blades, he barged in arrogantly. In the end, he did not stay for long before he obediently retreated. There were too many wind blades inside. Although Yu Qianqiu could block them, he could only move forward slowly. If this continued, he would tire himself to death. He did not know when he would reach the end. His eyes flickered as he pondered for a moment. He turned around and walked to the nether metal wall. The blue fire on his fingers was suppressed into 5 sharp claws. He stabbed into the nether metal wall and dug out a large piece. He quickly used the blue fire to refine it into a V-shaped shield. If it were anyone else, they would not have the fire to refine artifacts. Even if they had fire, how could ordinary fire so easily refine the nether metal? It would probably be troublesome to dig out a large piece from the wall. Why didn't I think of this earlier? Hugging the shield, Yu Qianqiu chuckled and hid behind it. Just as he turned around and entered another passageway, the shield in front of him immediately trembled violently. Yu Qianqiu trembled non-stop as he held onto the shield. Without hesitation, he covered the front of the nether metal shield with a meter-thick, V-shaped blue fire. The effect was very good, but the consumption of the blue fire was too high. However, with the blue fire blocking the Black Fiend wind blades as a buffer, he immediately felt much better. After walking for a short distance, he realized that he could not see the path in front of him. Thus, he pressed the blue fire claw on his 5 fingers. With a few schwa-schwa sounds, a dozen irregular holes immediately appeared on the shield, allowing him to see the path. You're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.